We're located in the Louisville Center for the Arts, a historic schoolhouse in Memory Square.
Recording in progress.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and child. Welcome to the June 2nd, 2026 regular meeting of the Louisville City Council. May I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton. Here. Councilmember Cooperman.
Here.
Councilmember Fahey.
Here.
Councilmember Kern.
Present.
Councilmember Hefner.
Here.
Councilmember Dickinson. Mayor Lay.
Here. Do we have Councilmember Dickinson?
I can see him online.
Okay.
He did say that his connection wasn't the greatest, so maybe he's having trouble responding.
We can count him as present. Councilmember Dickinson is joining us from across the pond at 2 a.m., as I understand it. So just want to mention that's serious commitment. No less, no more than the rest of us here. Well, maybe tonight. Okay, can you please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment? We do. Okay. So I will go through the litany. Tonight, we do have public comments on items not on the agenda and items on the consent agenda. If and when your name is called by the clerk, come on up to the podium and tell us your name and whether you're a Louisville resident. You don't have to tell us where you live, just whether you're a resident or not. Every speaker gets 3 minutes total. You don't have to use 3 minutes. If you agree with the previous speaker, you can just say you agree with the previous speaker. If you want to pool time, you can do so with one other or one or more other people, as long as they can either online or here in the room confirm that you're pooling it. All opinions are welcome. Please be respectful of the speaker. It's hard at times for people to stand up and speak, and we want to show as much respect as we can for the people that we have there, even if we disagree with them. So no booing, no hoorays, no banners and all that kind of stuff. And if, as I said, if you want to speak for less than 3 minutes, you can. If you want to speak for less than 6, if you're pooling time, please be aware of it. For those who have sent materials in or who are listening and are concerned that somehow just being here is going to give your comments more weight and heft than they would otherwise, I can assure you that we read the comments that come in and they have the same weight. So don't worry about that. So with all that said, one final thing is just that sometimes it's a little jarring in a public meeting when council doesn't respond to you. Why aren't we responding to you? Because the comments are not on the agenda. And so technically other people who might want to come in and listen to the item can't do that because they don't have any notice. So just know that that's why we're not responding. It's not that we're indifferent or that we're filing our nails. All right, let's move ahead with public comment.
J.R. Kettleson, and he has pooled time with Mohammed Ghali. Thank you.
One moment, I think, is his microphone on? There we go.
Yeah, I'm Mohammed Ghali. I'm part of the Cultural Advisory Board here for the City of Louisville, and I'm here to invite you to our summer events that are happening. The mayor pro tem, and the city council members and the city staff to our events. We have a lot of fun events coming up. We have a Pride Festival, we have a block party, and we have the summer concerts coming up on Thursday at the park. So we just really want you to come and support us during these events. If you can make it, please do. JR here will also be talking a little bit more about the details, but just want to be here to come here and to get some support from you guys to join us. Thank you.
Hello, my name is J.R. Kettleson. I'm the chair of the Cultural Advisory Board. I'm also obviously a resident of Louisville. I am in Ward 2. So tonight what I wanted to do, as Mohammed said, is we want to tell the mayor pro tem, city council members, and city staff about some events that are coming up in the next few weeks. So this Saturday, June 6th, we have the first Louisville Pride event will be happening. That'll be part of the Taste of Louisville Summerfest. It'll be the first Pride event that Louisville has sponsored, that we think. So stop by to check out the exhibiting local organizations and artists and participate in our community Paint by Numbers mural. We're going to have a Paint by Numbers mural, and so we invite community members to come out and paint this mural, and it'll be Paint by Numbers. That mural was created by Denver artist Katie Michelle. She does beautiful work, and we encourage everyone to come out and do that. I see this as an event kids will really enjoy, so we invite you to come out to that this Saturday. That's from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The other event we have coming up within the next 2 weeks is the Louisville Block Party. This is on June 14th from 2 to 5. This is the 5th year we've done the Block Party. This party is in recognition of the first responders. It started after the Marshall Fire. We had the first one at the fire station across from the rec center, and since then we've been doing them downtown at fire station number 1. That'll continue this year. Part of what we'll have this year is we'll have a lot of fun activities. They're going to have live music like they've always had, an arcade bus, caricaturists, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, and a foam party. You just have to come and see what that is. But that's going to be a lot of fun. There'll be food trucks there. I believe this year we're going to also have a beer garden that's hosted by the Louisville Chamber. So we invite everybody to come to that. The other thing I want to talk about tonight is the summer concerts in the park. This year, we're going back to having 5 concerts in the park, and the first one is on the 18th of June, so a couple of weeks away, and that'll be the Jacob Larson Band. And then we will have on the 25th of June, we'll have Blessing Chimanga. If anybody was at that concert at the Center for the Arts, you know how much positive energy that'll have. That'll be a very fun event. We take a week off for 4th of July, 150, 250. And then on the 9th of July, we'll have the River Arkansas. They're an Americana band from all over Colorado. And then on the 16th, we'll have the Long Run. That's an Eagles tribute band, and that will be happening the same day as I think it'll be coordinated with the senior ice cream social. So that will be happening that day. And then on the 23rd of July, we have Baby Fern. So we want to invite you to those 3 events. We invite everybody to those 3 events that are happening. And I want to thank you very much for allowing us to do this. And I hope you guys all have a great evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, JR and Mohammed. No others? Okay. Great. Excuse me. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Council informational comments and committee reports. Do council members have any comments? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I've been serving on the Boulder County Homelessness Working Group for a little over a year at this point in time, where we've been exploring different ways in which we can have a regional approach to try and help attack this challenge that we have within our community. Recently, they put out a packet regarding ADU information in order to try and help support, the building of smaller homes to try and help folks from entering homelessness. Now we're starting to look at other regional approaches as well as to how we can continue to work on this challenge together as a community. So I'll continue to keep everyone updated on how those plans go.
Thanks. Others? I wanted to just highlight one thing, which this is sort of a Colorado 150, US 250, but it's really the latter. Colorado History Museum is doing a Freedom Plain National Tour, which is Documents That Forged a Nation, which runs from May 28th to June 14th. They got a lot of cool stuff down in Denver, a lot of documents that are pretty rare, including, I think, some original engraving of the Declaration of Independence. They've got some Articles of Association. They got some Oaths of Allegiance by George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, and Aaron Burr, Treaty of Paris. There's some really, really neat things down there. I have not been there yet myself. I have been, I went to an exhibition about a week and a half ago and saw one of the early copies. There's like 20 left of the Declaration of Independence, and it was pretty amazing to see that, and also in one of 14 original constitutions that are left, which looked like it was printed on napkin. But it was, for me, quite moving. And anyway, this appears to have a lot of similar documents. So I encourage you to go and take your kids, grandkids, somebody else's kid, whatever you want. Anything else from anybody else? Right. City Manager's report.
Good evening. Thank you. I just want to thank all of our partners that participated in the Touch a Truck event this last Saturday. It was well attended, amazing event. And thank you to all the staff that worked the event. Also, just a reminder that we have voluntary watering restrictions in place, limiting it to 2 days per week. And then also our short-term rental application webpage is live. We'll be putting out messaging related to that, but the application is online as well as the forms associated with it. Thank you.
Thanks. We've got a number of items, regular business tonight. The first is resolution number 53, series 2026, a resolution of the city of Louisville, Colorado, supporting the Front Range Passenger Rail District's narrative summary for the proposed Louisville station and the development of passenger rail service along Front Range. There's a staff presentation, as I understand it, and there may be more than that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kurt Coar, Director of Public Works and Utilities. Going back roughly 20 years to the initiation of Fast Tracks, the city's been undertaking many planning efforts for station planning in downtown Louisville. Most recently, many of those planning efforts are coming to fruition through coordination with the state, through joint service with a partnership of RTD and Front Range Passenger Rail, a starter service to start in 2029 with 3 northbound and southbound trips per day, and then potentially additional service up to 10 trips per day with a full build out of a Front Range Passenger Rail. Brandon Schaefer with the State Office, Special Advisor for Transit and Rail, has joined us to give an update on the joint service. And Chris Nevitt, Vice Chair for Front Range Passenger Rail, is here to give us an update on efforts for Front Range Passenger Rail. And they're here to answer all your questions. We understand you might have a lot of questions given we haven't spent much time talking with you on rail. So we look forward to conversation tonight. With that, I'm going to introduce Brandon to update us on joint service, and we'll take things from there. So thank you.
Thanks.
Kurt, can you get the other presentation? That one right there.
Let's see.
The joint service.
Yeah. Jenny, can you get it on? There we go.
There you go.
There we go.
Thank you, Kurt.
Keys should do it for you.
Keys will do it. Okay, awesome. Good evening, Council. Hi, Mayor Lay. Thank you for having us tonight. I'll just brief you all. Thank you for having us, first of all. I'll just brief you all on what joint service is. This is the starter service of Front Range Passenger Rail that really starts with a partnership between the state, RTD, this Colorado Department of Transportation, the Governor's Office, and BNSF, and then housed within CDOT, 2 different enterprises that also have authority here to help us move passenger rail along the Front Range. So I'll go over what the foundation is first, and then Vice Chair Chris Nevitt will kind of talk to you all about the local return program that will be through the Front Range Passenger Rail District. So what is joint service? This is a collaborative effort by 6 different public agencies across the state of Colorado to initiate a starter passenger rail service from Denver to Fort Collins by January of 2029. A few key items to take into account here on joint service is that we really want to drive for some efficiencies here. We want one operator on the route, one access agreement between the state and BNSF to initiate this, and then we want one operator along this. In previous iterations, you've kind of heard about Northwest Rail, where RTD would be the operator of a commuter rail service, and then also Front Range Passenger Rail in 2021 came to fruition through state law to also run on the same tracks. And so really collaborated with BNSF, they asked for just one client, one entity to negotiate with for an access agreement, which I will say is a really fancy permission slip from the host railroad itself to put passengers on their freight line. And so that's what we're driving for here, and then one route between Denver here and Fort Collins. This is meant to be a cost-efficient starter service and designed to be the building blocks for Front Range Passenger Rail that can start first, and then really trying to drive towards as much cost certainty as possible. We are right now going through a process that will kick off shortly to do the design and preliminary engineering before the end of the conclusion of this year, where we can verify all of the costs before proceeding into construction in 2027. Where have we been in this project? Of course, there's 20 years that predate this timeline of 2024, but really, May of 24, Governor Polis signed 2 new different revenue streams into law. Senate Bill 184, which was a congestion impact fee, a rental car fee, and then Senate Bill 230, which brought together the oil and gas industry and environmentalists to really actually take revenue from the oil and gas industry and put it into transit here in the state of Colorado, really opening the doors to statewide investment, moving us, I think, to 26 in the nation now for state-sponsored money to go towards transit here in Colorado. Shortly thereafter, CEO and GM Deborah Johnson, Shoshana Liu, and others who are part of the Joint Service EOC met for the first time to really start driving towards how to collaborate. State law provided them a few different options, and the easiest route at the time, given that Senate Bill 184 didn't actually give them any money to stand up a new agency by themselves or a new department, they went down an IGA route to establish the Joint Service Executive Oversight Committee. In March of 2025, building off of 184, which was passed by former Senate President Steve Fenberg here in Boulder County and House Speaker Julie McCluskey, there were a couple different reports that we had to submit to the state and to the governor's office. Our second report was due in March, where we had to look at those revenue streams and look at RTD's revenue stream from the Fast Track Savings account and see if there was enough money available to do 3 or 5 daily starter service round trips. And we went with 3. In June of 2025, through a 3-week sprint, all of the governing boards, which I think are 6, all voted to enter into an IGA. So over 50 board members said, yes, we will all partner together to plan, collaborate, and negotiate with BNSF to get an access agreement to finally commence passenger rail. And then shortly thereafter as well, in August, BNSF actually flew here to Denver and has been here twice, and the negotiation team has also been to Fort Worth to negotiate the access agreement. And so really fast timeline here from 2024 when state law passed with 184 and 230 to where we're at now today. These are the agreed upon characteristics of service. This really comes from the term sheet that was entered into by BNSF and the state of Colorado in partnership with RTD. But this kind of just lays out for you some key characteristics to take into account here. So we have the same schedule 7 days a week. We try to do a different weekend schedule, but at BNSF's suggestion, that would cost more to build different infrastructure for a different schedule. So we kept with the same one, 7 days a week. A maximum speed at 79 miles per hour, although the average speed will be probably a little bit lower than that. 3 daily round trips to start with. Our platforms will be new platforms adjacent to the BNSF main line, which just means we're not having to build, at least for the first 3 daily round trips, any passenger-only sidings where they would have to park on the side and build something new. We can actually just operate right off of their main line, even here in Louisville. The route will start in Denver Union Station and take RTD's B line before transferring in Westminster to the BNSF Front Range subdivision, which just means we transfer from RTD's line over onto BNSF's main line from Denver all the way to Fort Collins. We'll have 8 different station stops, as you can see here on the right-hand side. In yellow were the original Front Range passenger rail stations, Denver Union Station, Boulder, Longmont, Loveland, and Fort Collins. Once joint service got started, though, we needed to recognize and add communities that have been paying into Fast Tracks and paying for this train service, which is the city of Westminster, Broomfield, and Louisville, really adding these 3 communities into the service. And then that was officially adopted by the Front Range Passenger Rail Board in November of last year to ensure that Louisville received service. Our equipment, a little bit different than what RTD studied, but we will have 1 revenue consist, which just means we'll have 1 train set. And then we'll have a spare as well on the side. Also working and collaborating with BNSF, they actually suggested you can actually do your service cheaper if you just have 2 trains instead of having 5, like you're coming in to your negotiating period starting with. So this was something that was also a cost saver there. And then the access agreement term will be for 25 years. So once the access agreement is signed, it's a contractual obligation for 25 years that we can have passengers going from Denver to Fort Collins. What are the different costs that this region knows today? So a lot of you are probably very familiar with RTD's peak service feasibility study, which examined how RTD alone could have done this service if they had to do it by themselves. They were looking at 3 trains in and 3 trains out from Denver to Longmont with an annual, with a CapEx cost of around $650 million that they would have to pay upfront with a delivery between 2045 and 2050 if they did it alone. Once 184 was signed into law, we had to do our own study to look at the cost feasibility. And these studies looked at going from Denver to Fort Collins, and that cost came in around $885 million if we did this with the state. And then we're looking at $32 million and what was anticipated to be the operations and maintenance to run the service every single year. Once we've actually started negotiating with BNSF and actually taken to them the characteristics of service that we would like to see, this is a cost the region has never had to date. We've had really great people initiating plans and studies, but once we actually started negotiating with BNSF themselves and getting hard costs from them, what our term sheet estimated as recently as a month ago is $333 million to get this project up and running. And then our estimate for O&M is also between 25 and 35 million. That is inclusive of how much it will cost to pay BNSF to get on their tracks, and then also looking to know this is inclusive of the Amtrak O&M as well as our operator as well. And then this also includes insurance and assumes that we would lease the rolling stock from Amtrak to do the service. For you all tonight, since you guys are going to be talking and looking at the local return policy, these are the amenities and station upgrades that we are looking at that the project anticipates paying for themselves. So the project anticipates paying for everything that's needed to upgrade within the BNSF right-of-way. So we are looking at paying for canopies and windscreens for residents who want to ride this service, making sure that there are emergency call boxes, security cameras, just really the basic amenities that you would see at these station sites. And the project is assumed to carry this cost on our side between the state and RTD. specific to Louisville, you don't really have a whole lot of costs outside of the right-of-way, although we will learn this through the preliminary engineering and really looking at the footprint here in Louisville. But for different municipalities, we're looking at ADA access for sidewalks and crosswalks to get to their platform, looking at parking, property acquisition as needed, and then any road extensions or modifications as well. But really, Louisville is getting everything within the right-of-way, and then the state anticipates for some of these costs to be outside of the right-of-way as well. But this is what you have here in Louisville. This is also really important. We're not asking the city to contribute to anything to this service for the capital construction of joint service. The project, again, I just want to stress this, we are paying for this ourselves right now, anticipated for this. At the end of this year, we'll have new cost refinements coming down the pike. This is just our look ahead for all of you. So we already briefed all of the governing boards back in February on the term sheet details. In March, we started working with them all on a draft financial plan. And then in April, they all adopted all together on the same day, on April 28th, I think. They all adopted the term sheet and said, yes, we give our initial approval to this. And we also are going to advance the design costs with BNSF and an A&E firm to actually start modeling what this service would look like. And then by the end of this year, we hope to get to 90% designs, and a notice to proceed is given to BNSF so that they can start construction starting as early as 2027. Between now and then, we do anticipate getting to an access agreement this summer. I don't think it's going to be June of 2026 right now, but it's this summer that we anticipate negotiations concluding and then leading us into the rest of this year. Again, this is just our project timeline, just to bring you all along with us. There is a lot of work happening with a lot of partners, your team here in Louisville included. But really, by the end of this year, we hope to finalize the access agreement with BNSF, finalize station development and our plans with local governments. What does that mean for the city of Louisville? It just means that we are liaising with Kurt and Rob here to make sure that your station here is ready to go, that we can put the milepost into the access agreement with BNSF to say that the long planned for station stop in downtown Louisville is what we will go for. And then between now and the end of the year, negotiate with BNSF for the leases to acquire property as needed to support stations, and then boards making all of the appropriations to advance the project. And then starting in next year through 2029, anticipated construction, rolling stock testing, making sure Amtrak is ready, BNSF is upgrading their tracks, and then in 2029, we will start service. So that's the presentation just on joint service, just to show you all what this initial planning process looks like, at least from the state side of what we are initiating and where the timelines look like. What you'll hear from Vice Chair Chris Nevitt of the Front Range Passenger Rail District is a program coming out of the Front Range Passenger Rail District to really support local communities and actually taking some of the sales tax money and bringing it back into your community to really build out your station sites however you would like them, or first and last mile connection. So with that, I will turn it over to Chris.
Thank you, Brandon.
As a boomer, I couldn't have done that myself. Thank you, members of City Council and Mayor Lay. My name is Chris Nevitt. I'm the Vice Chair of the Front Range Passenger Rail District Board of Directors. So the screen looks like one thing, and okay, cool. Brandon has told you what the first dish out of the kitchen is going to be, and I'm here to tell you more about what the whole meal is that we're planning. So the Colorado Connector, over 25,000 citizens of Colorado participated in naming the train, the Colorado Connector, or COCO, and I actually got here early, both to beat traffic, but also to tour your downtown, and checked out the location for the COCO station. And I gotta say, Louisville has done a fantastic job in setting the table, continuing with the meal metaphor. You guys have really set the table well for that station. So we are taking a very unique approach to this kind of service, an approach that other states have not taken. And the Front Range Passenger Rail District is responsible for delivering it. And what's the difference between COCO, the Colorado Connector and Front Range Passenger Rail District. COCO is the train, Front Range Passenger Rail District is the entity that's going to deliver the train. So Front Range Passenger Rail is like NASA, and COCO is like the Artemis mission. We were created in 2021 by the state of Colorado to plan, finance, engineer, build, and maintain the train. And this is something that we've all been dreaming of for many years, many decades. The reason that we're actually going to get it done is because the state of Colorado gave us a unique power which no other entity that has pursued this has, and that is the ability to take the question to the voters for the revenue necessary to deliver the whole program. We're also taking, and Brandon's presentation was emblematic of this, the phased and public-private partnership approach to delivering the train. So instead of talking about, pie in the sky that your grandchildren will be able to eat, we want to deliver a meal for you to eat tomorrow. And partnering with the BNSF is key to that, and building this in phases is key to that. And by phases, I mean both phases in terms of the legs of the train, that makes no sense, but the stretches that will be served, the quality of the service, and the frequency of the train. So the joint starter service, that's 3 trains a day, 3 full round trips a day between Denver and Fort Collins, and we are building up to 10 round trips a day between Fort Collins and Pueblo, and then Trinidad beyond. This is a map of the joint service start. Brandon already walked through this, I think, and I want to try to go quickly so we can answer all of your questions. And then this is the overview of the full service. So going all the way from Fort Collins, all the way down to Pueblo, additional service down to Trinidad. Trinidad is important because that's where the Southwest Chief comes through. So Trinidad is your connection all the way to Chicago and Los Angeles. And then eventually to New Mexico and to Wyoming. So as I said, this is kind of a uniquely Colorado approach. We do things together here. We don't wait for somebody to show up and punch our ticket. We build it ourselves. And so we're going to be building this in phases. These are several slides, sort of, why a train. I think everybody understands why a train. That picture, that's worth 1,000 words. That's a wreck on I-25. And the train is going to be safe, comfortable, convenient, reliable service through all of these Front Range communities, knitting them together so that they become more part of a community. So, you can come to dinner in Louisville and live in Pueblo and work in Fort Collins. It makes it possible to make those trips without getting in your car and risking that every time. The air quality benefits of a train versus cars is self-evident. Reduced costs as well. It's a much cheaper proposition. And anybody who's spent any time traveling by train knows that it's it's night and day in terms of the quality of the experience. This is a whole catalog of other benefits to investing in rail. The return on investment is enormous. It's actually a bigger return on investment than investing in roads. Household value, new jobs, and again, I-25, CDOT has done an amazing job in trying to manage I-25, but it is not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. So another dimension of the full program is special event stops. So we're looking at creating special event stops. So you saw the catalog of stations for the whole system, but special event stops. And the first one we're looking at is for the new Broncos Stadium at Burnham Yard. So people being able to take the train to the game rather than driving to the game. That'll be awesome. And here is, and Brandon sort of previewed this, the local return for station areas. So our view is that we are delivering an enormous value to all the communities that COCO will serve. But exactly how best to take advantage of that value, that's something you know better than we. And so we want to be a partner, not just in delivering the train, but also giving money back to the local communities that they can invest in the things that they think are important. Different communities, different station areas will have different priorities, different things that they want to invest in to take advantage of the train. And so the local return for Louisville, and I think this item is on your agenda for this evening, is about Louisville taking the local return funds and investing them in how you think it's most important to take advantage of the train and to deliver something of value to your citizens. We're partners with you, not just in terms of delivering the train, but also delivering some resources. Here's all the amazing things in Louisville that will be accessible by the train. Another view of that. And like I said, I was super impressed. It was fun walking around there. The station will be just to the north of the underpass. And I think it's going to be fantastic. And that's going to show up, the first dish that is being served in 2029. We're continuing to do stakeholder engagement. We have to develop the operational plans in detail. We want to make sure before we ask you to help us build this, we want to make sure that you have a clear idea of what the operational plan is, the plan of delivery. And we are currently pointing at a November ballot. So I think that's it. Hopefully I didn't use too much of your time, and we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Chris and Brandon. Do we have questions from council members on the presentation? Yes, Councilmember Cooperman.
Yep. All right, thank you for that presentation. I had one question from the first part. The operation and management or maintenance budget for the Colorado Connector is about twice that of the RTD peak service, and I was wondering what makes such a difference. Clearly, right, one of them goes all the way to Fort Collins and the other doesn't, but I'm still curious about that.
Yeah, the $25 to $36 million range that you see, a portion of that is the access fee for BNSF that's paid year over year. Mm-hmm. And then the difference between the 36 and 25 is what's assumed to be for our operator of Amtrak to do the annual O&M. So this is like insurance, diesel, taking care of the train, cleaning it, and that's why. Does that help?
Yes, that does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. And then another question. So I'm curious, so with the funding that's already been allocated, if we disregard the possibility of a ballot measure, for how long could we sustain the starter service with those funding mechanisms?
The good news is that joint service is built as a standalone, so it could run without the ballot measure happening later on down the road, and it's financed in perpetuity year over year by all of the boards taking that up. And so this does stand alone. If the Front Range Passenger Rail Board decides to not go to the ballot this year, joint service still proceeds down the tracks. And then if they do go, the difference is with the additional revenue that they would be collecting, it kind of does change what station sites kind of look like, maybe, and it gives us a little bit more money to work with than the limited budgets that we have right now for joint service.
Okay. Can you elaborate a little bit on what the sort of not precise, but sort of more precise purpose of the ballot measure would be? Or can you not say too much to that?
Definitely. So joint service is just 3 daily round trips. So Louisville would see the train come through 2, 4, 6 times a day. If Front Range Passenger Rail goes to the ballot this year, the additional sales tax money that they would be collecting would help to increase frequency going north, and also it would build the project going south. In Senate Bill 184, the legislature really directed the state entities to prioritize Denver North, recognizing the long-promised Northwest Rail, and directed the project to start here first and go through the north. And so what you get in a full ballot measure is the possibility of increasing the frequency, having more money to actually do more capital projects, and then also Denver going south to Douglas County, El Paso County, down to Trinidad and Pueblo, they would also see their service, and those phases actually come to fruition.
Right. Okay, that's very helpful. I think I had one more question. I'm just, you mentioned a bunch of things that would be installed at the stations essentially and our surrounding area. Has there been any consideration for additional buffering for noise or site sort of stuff around stations?
Not that we've contemplated, but I don't know if Louisville is a quiet zone or not, so I think I might
It is a quiet zone,
I might
yeah.
direct that over to Kurt.
Yeah, we do have a quiet zone. We haven't gotten into the details of that station design, so it hasn't been contemplated, but will certainly be discussed.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, Councilmember Kern.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And also just thank you all for the hard work that went into this. I specifically and especially appreciate the work with negotiating with BNSF. I imagine that was a monumental task, and I don't want to undervalue how much work everybody had to put into that. So my question is an optimistic one. So the first is, what is the train capacity since there'll be a single train, and should this be so popular that you're running at capacity? Again, it's a very optimistic question. Is there an opportunity before we would even have like the Front Range Passenger Rail, while it is still starter service, to have more round trips?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. We are not, I'll take Mountain Rail, for example, or the Winter Park Express in its current form today. That train, I think, operates around 420 seats in their normal season. We have not started a negotiation quite yet with Amtrak to know what the consists would be or what the train sets would be and what the capacity looks like quite yet. We are still negotiating with BNSF, so that Herculean task is still ongoing, but do want to honor the celebration for the term sheet. But we're not in a position yet to know how large of a train set this would be quite yet until we negotiate with Amtrak, and Amtrak kind of directs us and lets us know what their available capacity would be. Now, we have partnered and started working with federal partners to look at the new arrows that are coming online via Amtrak to see what that would look like. And so we are, fingers crossed, we could have new equipment potentially, but it does take years and years to get that on the line.
Great, thank you.
Okay, other questions? All right, why don't we take some public comment? Do we have any public comment? Okay. Hopefully folks heard the spiel earlier, but how many do we have? 2, okay. Just the one I'll focus on is just the 3-minute limit, and 6 if you have somebody you're pooling time with, but you don't have to take the full time, so.
First up is Lisa Hughes, followed by Josh Gordon.
Am I on yet? Oh, is this on? Okay. Hi, Council. I was waiting for the timer. Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm just coming here to support this project. As a 25-year-plus resident of Louisville and Boulder County, I have been waiting and waiting for my tax dollars to actually produce a train. So I'm very excited about this because in 2050, I'm going to be so old I might not want to ride a train anymore. And I want me and my children, some of whom currently live in Fort Collins, to be able to get back and forth without having to drive. If you've done that drive to Fort Collins recently or anywhere north with the congestion and the carpool lanes on I-25 is unreal. So I'm really hoping you'll support this project. Because I would rather use my tax dollars to do this than support the old project from RTD, which we're still waiting for. Also, what I was going to say, and I'm think that the station idea sounds great, and they're going to put the money back into the local communities. I went to the presentation on this in Longmont, and I was very impressed. One thing I would bring up as a concern is I would like you to consider the last mile connections when you're considering this, especially for those of us who live on the west side of town in Ward 2 and already have to basically drive or figure out some way to get down here to get onto the train. So I'm not sure what that would look like, but I would really like that to be in the consideration. And also what the parking and stuff would look like and how that relates to the last mile connection, since obviously the object of this is not to drive. And I think that was all I was going to say. I just would encourage you to support the project, and I'm happy that they've done all this work on it, and finally maybe I'll get to ride a train to Denver. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Next up is Josh Gordon.
Hello.
Hi. We can hear you, Josh. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I had a question. This is all really exciting. And I think we've heard a lot of the benefits of what, or I should say, expected benefits. But I think nothing's all benefits. And it'd be interesting to hear what downsides people have thought about with this and how those may be mitigated. And I did want to reiterate the previous person who just had the floor about the last mile. I think, you know, a train has capacity to move people, but the people have to get on the train, and that has to be effective for the train to be effective. And I think that's actually a very key part of this. So those are the two things that I kind of wanted to bring up. I really would love to hear some discussion or addressing what the potential downsides might be. And those may evolve into not being downsides, but you know, starting something out usually doesn't go flawlessly. And I think as communities, it'd be good to hear about that, to know that that's been thought about and mitigated. And that's it.
Thank you, Judge. Okay, good. Why don't we bring it back to council? Just to sort of set that table a little bit more. We're doing something relatively narrow tonight, which is reviewing a resolution in support of the Front Range Passenger Rail's district's narrative summary for the proposed Louisville station and development of the passenger rail service along the Front Range. We're not voting on any ballot measure, reviewing any ballot. There's no ballot measure out right now, so we're not talking really about that. There's no reason to spend time on that. This is just to talk a little bit about what's happened heretofore, and I have some comments, but I want to hear from other council members' thoughts and discussion. Anybody? Yes, Councilmember Cooperman.
Yeah. First had a clarifying question. So the updated version of the resolution, the one that's printed and was given to us, we're considering the updated version to begin with. Is that correct?
That is an option for you to consider that resolution.
Okay, that's fine. And then another question. So the resolution refers to the Addendum A narrative, and I'm curious who wrote the narrative.
Yeah, that was a group effort of staff and joint service folks.
Okay, thank you. Did I have another? Okay. I guess I'll ask another question. So the whereas statement, the fourth to last, the one that says the FRPRD has committed to providing direct payments and so on. I'm actually a little bit confused about this one because I thought I thought that direct payments are only part of the local return program, and that's contingent on a ballot measure and so forth. So is this where statement really accurate, or is it not?
I mean, I think the whole resolution intention is the spirit forward. And so in the event that there's a ballot measure and a ballot measure passes, then those funds will come direct to us. I think the resolution also speaks to receive an extra 10% of what's being considered. Louisville has, so what we did not talk about is the amount of money. Louisville would receive $2 million over 25 years in the event a ballot measure passes. And with the passing of this resolution, there's two key things happening. We're not necessarily entering into any agreement for any ballot measure or any direct support of any ballot measure. But we're acknowledging that our station will be located at milepost 19.9, and that we and FRPR and the state have undertaken efforts to make this become a reality. So that's the spirit of the resolution. And
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Fahey.
Yes, so I'm reading the redacted, I guess, not redacted, but edited version of the resolution, where it crosses out pending voter approval in the whereas, and therefore, section 4, if a ballot measure is passed by the voters of the Front Range Passenger Rail District, if those two things are taken out, then I would approve this situation, because I would approve getting this station in whether the ballot measure passes or not. So I don't want to publicly be in support of the ballot, I guess, the ballot question.
Any others, Council? Yes, go ahead.
I'll just say for clarification, the strike-throughs are mine, and that they were for the purpose you just described, which is the ballot measure is more so the business of the district than ours. And, I think what we're trying to do is just approve the narrative, which I hope we'll do. And unless there's any objection, I'd move we approve resolution number 53, Series 2026 as amended.
Second.
Discussion. Couple of things. One, I wanted to say thank you to those on the district, those who have negotiated the joint service. This is a massive process. I think it is a huge number of stakeholders who've been involved in this. I wanted, even before the motion, but I'm fine doing it right now, it'd be great to pull up, while commenting here, that slide about the costs. Can we do that? There's a cost slide. But anyway, we had a couple of negotiators that worked extremely hard. It was just, I don't want to call out too much single people, but Lisa Kaufman and Deborah Johnson, who comes from RTD, that number on the sort of last column, third from the top, if you just wander to the left and see what they, with the power of all of these other folks working extremely hard, were able to squeeze in with Burlington Northern's, I will, we'll give props where props are due, brought that number down to an incredibly tight $332, is that right? $1 million, and which I still am astonished by. It's through a lot of work and a lot of incredible engineering and financial engineering. It's not, I am convinced it's not blowing smoke. It is literally really tight discussions where everybody, I think, was pulling on the same word. So I am absolutely in favor of this. I think it's, we don't have to move ahead and have discussion about the ballot measure for now. Although I want it to be very clear that by passing this resolution with the changes, that this is not throwing cold water on a ballot measure. It's simply deferring to another day that issue. So I'm going to support it. Anyone else? Okay. Yes, Councilmember Cooperman.
Yeah, just briefly, to thank Councilmember Hefner for his strike-throughs. I think they're excellent. And just want to say I'm very supportive of getting train service through Louisville.
Anyone else? All right, take a voice vote. All in favor of resolution number 53, series 2026, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much for your presentation, all your hard work. Please tell everybody involved. We appreciate it. And keep on, get to work, right? Or get back to work. All right, our next item is concept plan, southwest corner of Pascal Drive and Highway 42. And I believe Director Zucchero is up.
All right, good evening, Mayor Lay, members of City Council, Rob Zucchero, Community Development Director for the city. I'm going to be making this presentation for our senior planner, Matt Post. He is out on a well-deserved vacation, so I'm filling in for him, but I want to thank him for all his hard work on getting this ready for the packet. So what we have before you, again, is a concept plan, and you're familiar with these now. We've been doing them for a while, but the idea is that council is going to be providing some preliminary feedback. There's are no, no votes, just individual feedback on this to help city staff and the developer understands if there are any potential issues before moving forward with a formal application. So some of you might be familiar with this property. We've had several different iterations of plans on this property for a couple of decades now. This used to be called the Foundry Project. It's part of the Steel Ranch development. And it has evolved over time from being a commercial parcel to a mixed-use parcel. We have a new comprehensive plan now, and we do have a lot of folks who are looking to align with the comprehensive plan and the flexibility associated with that. So this property is at the southwest corner of Pascal and Highway 42. It's a little under 6 acres in size. It's zoned planned community zone district, commercial and residential. Currently, again, it's zoned for mixed use. And what the applicant is asking for is feedback on a potential change to that general development plan to consider allowing between 174 to 205 dwelling units, which would be a mix of attached and detached homes, as well as multifamily part of the project, and up to 4-story development on the east side adjacent to Highway 42. A little bit of the specifics on the background. In 2016 is probably the most recent full planned unit development that was actually approved for the property, which was mixed use. It had a lot of commercial and 32 for-sale homes. That never materialized on the property. The plans in place at that time required commercial concurrency, so there were strict requirements that the commercial had to be developed with the residential, and there were an age-restricted requirement. There was a lot of discussion about school overcrowding at that time that we don't have today, and need for housing diversity. In 2022, we did amend that to change some of those provisions a little bit, but we still did have a commercial concurrency element on that and an increase to 59 dwelling units. And that was just a change to the GDP. There were no PUD plans that came forward from that last amendment. So that's kind of where we're at today. So here's the layout of what the applicant is proposing. Again, you can see there'd be smaller scale development on the west side adjacent to the existing patio homes and the park, and then it would transition to higher up to 4-story development, multifamily on the east side adjacent to Highway 42. So they are asking for feedback on an increase in the density as well as a potential increase in height up to 50 feet and 4 stories. Again, this is just a concept of what they're planning, not a final plan. So a little bit more on the key issues that staff's going to point out. One is density. So based on that range of units that they're proposing, that would be approximately 30 to 35 dwelling units per acre. Again, building height up to 4 stories on the east side, transitioning to lower scale development on the west. And so there would need to be a GDP amendment in order to implement this, just so you know what they would be heading towards. And then if that were approved, then they could move forward with a PUD site development plan. Affordable housing, they would need to meet our inclusionary housing requirements, so some feedback on that could be helpful as well to the applicant. And they may have additional questions that they want feedback on, but these are the primary policy issues that staff has highlighted. So again, the existing zoning or general development plan allows up to 59 dwelling units. They're proposing that increase to 174 to 205. So the existing GDP, that density measurement would be 10.14 dwelling units per acre. Again, we've talked about this, you know, this doesn't really get into some of the nuance of if they're one-bedroom units or larger multi-bedroom units. So, you know, we're starting to look more at mass and scale of development, but dwelling units per acre can be something that we look at, and it is how we have described development density in the comp plan. So the comprehensive plan does indicate for this area, which is neighborhood center, that the density range would be between 18 and 30 dwelling units per acre. So on the low end, they're within that density unit. On the upper end of what they're looking for feedback on, they would be at 35 dwelling units per acre. So that'd be a little bit outside of the comprehensive plan range that's anticipated for neighborhood center. So for height and transition, so here's the site and some of the surrounding development. You could see there is a lot of senior housing. We have some housing, more housing planned to the south. That you're familiar, you've seen a concept plan for a development here. We've got some kind of lower density patio homes. This same developer has some plans for future patio homes on the Lafayette side of Hecla as well. And we're pointing out some senior housing development here just to give some context. The existing GDP, again, limits height to 30 feet. The comprehensive plan, we didn't get into actual height, but we did have a lot of talk about transition from existing neighborhoods as well as overall stories. So the comp plan contemplates 3 stories for this area, and their proposal that they're wanting feedback on is to allow up to 4 stories for the east side and then transition to lower density to the west adjacent to the existing development. So again, their next steps, just so you know, if they decide to move forward with an application, they would be making the 8th Amendment to the Dakota General Development Plan in order to establish the zoning that would increase the density and height allowances and remove the commercial concurrency requirement. So it would be an all residential development. And then that GDP would also have specifics likely about typical zoning standards like setbacks, lot coverage, lot area, and so forth. And they'd have to do a final PUD and subdivision plat along with that. That could happen concurrently, or it could be in steps after the GDP amendment. We did provide you just a link to what we thought were some relevant comprehensive plan goals, just so that you were aware of those in the staff report. And I won't go into all those in detail, but we can answer any questions about that. We do have a lot in the comprehensive plan about trying to provide mixed-use development, equitable housing, diversity of housing types, family-friendly neighborhoods, and so forth. So there's a lot in the comprehensive plan that would support, some changes to the zoning. And again, we're looking for city council feedback on the extent of some of those major policy questions. So they are within the South Boulder Road opportunity area within the comprehensive plan as well. Again, which is looking for some higher density mixed use and residential development, also to meet our housing plan goals. Just to remind you of those, our comprehensive plan is built off significantly of our housing strategy. And so there's a lot of goals and opportunities and strategies in that plan, including providing diversity of housing and also senior housing. We know one issue that we've been facing as well is declining school enrollment. So we're, as a community, facing kind of the need for a lot of family housing, but with demographic changes, we're also have a need for a lot of senior housing as well. Again, there's no specifics in this proposal about how they would meet our inclusionary housing ordinance, and you will be seeing some amendments to our inclusionary housing ordinance on a future agenda. But the project would need to move forward and provide 12% deed restricted affordable housing on site or cash in lieu would be the likely options for this. And again, that update to our inclusionary housing ordinance, we're going to be looking at some incentives if you provide on site or higher percentages of affordable housing. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions from staff, and then the applicant will present as well.
Director, could you provide the spiel that we usually do on concept plans?
Yes, yeah. So yeah, this is just a concept plan. So so everybody knows we do public notice for those. So it's a great opportunity for the applicant and staff to get feedback from City Council, get public input on a potential future application. There are no votes by council, so council can provide individual feedback on the application that's non-binding, and then the applicant can take that feedback to help influence, form their application, help them with decisions on how to move forward.
I want to add, I'll take sort of personal privilege to add to that, because I think it's worth adding to it, that while one of the things we get out of this process is really good interchange, and I'm looking forward to that. We as a council aren't establishing positions that the applicant can, in a legal way, rely on. It doesn't matter because it's good discussion to have. At the same time, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and what the applicant brings to us now isn't necessarily going to have to conform to what we hear tonight. We hope it will, but that's, as we discuss it, but that's something I just want to make it clear. It's non-reliance on both our part and the applicants. So with that, because we have had that situation come up, and I want to make it clear that we shouldn't be holding folks responsible for what they do tonight, just as they can't hold us responsible necessarily for that either. All right, so let's have any council questions on the proposal? Or do we have an applicant?
Yes, I'm expecting an applicant presentation. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I kind of figured that's part of the deal.
And do you want to take the applicant presentation next?
I think that'd be great.
Yes, okay. Okay. Where is that? Here we go. Okay.
Do I just hit present here? There we go. Okay, great. David Sinke, 712 Main Street, Louisville, Colorado. I am the president and one of the owners of a company called Boulder Creek Neighborhoods, and we are very, very pleased to be longtime corporate citizens of this fine town. And with me tonight is my colleague, Mike Cooper, who is our Director of Entitlements and has begun working on this project with me and a number of other people. I want to thank Council for their time tonight and also staff. We've spent a fair bit of time kind of understanding the new comp plan and the work that you've been doing over the past several months and years to lay the foundation for what's coming next. And I would also like to extend a thanks to a number of the members of the public who we recognize here. As you'll hear, we have a long history, not only in Louisville, but with this particular project. And a number of those folks have attended a neighborhood meeting that we hosted, which is great. And we are absolutely in listening mode, not only then, but tonight. So we hope to learn as much as we can for the potential of moving forward on this project. So just a little bit of history about Boulder Creek. We moved to town about the time the original Steel Branch project was getting going, kind of in the 2014, 2015 range. And we have been very, very excited to be involved in all kinds of projects, but also just downtown life. So our corporate offices are, you know, like to say, corporate sounds a little corporate. Our world headquarters are right across Main Street here. We've got a couple of small buildings. We also own a small retail building in Louisville, and just very proud to be involved in a number of different facets of life in Louisville. We've built probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,500 to 3,000 homes in the Front Range of Colorado, and we do business up and down the Front Range of Colorado. And but it's always a pleasure when we get to work on a project that is right here. And for me personally, it's actually a piece of land that I drive by every single day on my long commute from Indian Peaks and Lafayette to downtown Louisville. So I have a very vested interest in what happens here. And we're excited to learn a little bit more about your perspective as well. You know, we are primarily interested in, or we think that there is an opportunity for our company to increase the diversity of housing. And we do that by trying to understand what exists today and what might be a gap in the housing supply. And over time, that posture has come from a couple of different perspectives. One is we think it's a really interesting way to do business, but it's also essential. The housing market in Colorado is occupied by almost all of the national home builders. And if we're going to survive and offer something of value to consumers, because it's not going to be the absolute lowest price or the absolute biggest house for the price, you know, how do we bring something of value to the market? And for us, it's all about expanding the diversity of options. So very pleased to have a 20-year history of delivering senior targeted housing, whether that be patio homes, primarily patio homes, but also attached versions of paired patio homes. And back in the past, we used to do condos, much more difficult to do, pardon me, given the construction defect litigation environment in our state. We've also approached affordability in some interesting ways. We, I think, pioneered some of the smallest small lot, single-family homes. We learned through serving seniors that there was a huge market need for smaller product. One of the things that we try not to do is restrict our senior housing in most cases, because what we've learned is that there are many additional cohorts of buyers that are currently do not have a housing option. Smaller, more efficient, low maintenance homes are something that a variety of different groups really don't have now that we don't build as many condos in this state. So that's an area that we focus on as well. We also have built entire communities that are affordable. So recently delivered a 120-unit project down in Denver, and we were able to, with the use of all of the financial tools available to all affordable housing, we were able to deliver 30 to 60% AMI housing. So we have insights into how that can work and in what ways that can be delivered. And recently, there's a new housing type that it's always sort of existed, but this new build-to-rent concept has become more and more prevalent in our market. And we think it's an interesting opportunity for seniors that don't necessarily want to own their homes. This product is being made available to lots of different buyer cohorts, but we tend to focus on the senior side of that. Pardon me. I'm enjoying the benefits of seasonal allergies. And then a little bit more specifically, zeroing into this project, well, one last thing I would say, also an enormous sense of pride. We were able to help somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 families rebuild in the Marshall Fire build area between Louisville and Superior. And because we decided to engage in that process, we actually pulled back on all of our entitlement efforts during that process. So you haven't seen us at the podium in a long time. We wanted to be very focused and unconflicted as we went into that endeavor. And we still have a handful of fire rebuild homes that are being done, but just enormous pride in being able to be a small part of that rebuilding process. And we learned an enormous amount going through that. As it relates to product type, interestingly, in order to rebuild, we developed the very first, what I would call standard, sort of single-family, two-story, product. We actually had to go and develop 10 new floor plans in order to do that. That's how diverse our typical housing stock is. So going now a little bit closer to DLO, and Mike Cooper's going to stand up and do the heavy lifting, and really Rob has covered a lot of the basics here. But we have watched this community since we left there, having sold our patio homes, our paired patio homes, and a number of our townhomes. I think we built the majority. Ryland also built a number of homes in the Steel Ranch community, but I think we built the largest number of homes there. And we have watched, hoping that the things that were envisioned way back then would come to fruition on this property. And as Rob alluded to, a number of things, in our opinion, our assessment, and it's only our opinion, I'm sure others will disagree, but there were really key elements to the previous entitlements that made them unbuildable. The concurrency of commercial was a real impediment. The condo nature of some of the original product, although it's fantastic product and I would absolutely love to build it in Louisville, we don't, from a risk profile perspective, we're not going to do that, and many others have chosen not to do that. And also, just the density. As you look at the housing plan and your own housing study, this is one of the few places in town where we can have significant density and deliver quite a bit more housing. And over the years, as we watched, frankly, a number of extremely capable and high-quality builders and developers take a look at this project, we were interested to see who would sort of solve the Rubik's Cube, who could figure out the Venn diagram of all of the competing interests here and actually move a project to feasibility. And over that time, those years, we heard from residents that we built homes for, and they said, could you please come back and be a part of the development of this parcel? We would like to get rid of the dirt pile. We would like to have somewhere to walk. We would like to see the completion of our community. And of course, we're very sympathetic to that. But we said, every time we were approached, the feasibility of this project is extremely complicated, and there are a lot of moving pieces, and the concurrency of commercial and some of the other requirements that are there, we really don't have the skill set to do that. We are not commercial developers. We are, incapable of doing some of the things that are a part of this initial entitlement. So as those various other proposals, many of them didn't make it to the concept review process or a process prior to that, but a couple of them did, and all of them have kind of fallen by the wayside. So here we are today in our attempt. I know that certain things that people will see today will not be exactly what they want to see, and for others, they may absolutely love this plan. Our goal is to get that perspective and to learn more about how does the Rubik's Cube get solved? What are the components that we can do well and come into alignment with the needs of the city? And if we can deliver on those things and come up with a feasible project, we would like nothing more than to finish up the entryway to Steel Ranch here in Louisville. So with that, I'll stop yapping. And one very last comment, Mike, come on up. We did have a non-required neighborhood meeting. We're very, very pleased with the feedback of that meeting. We invited the Steel Ranch neighbors, and we got a wonderful turnout. And they didn't run Mike and I out of the room immediately, and we were able to give a presentation. We were able to hear a lot of feedback, both good and bad, and took a lot of notes, and we look forward to continuing that process. So with that, Mike, I'll stand aside.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Mike Cooper with Boulder Creek Neighborhood, 712 Main Street, Louisville. We took some cues from the last proposal that came through. I think all of you were here for that. It was about 1.5 years ago. So we took a lot of cues. Senior rental has been, a vision of ours. We've tried to find the right parcel for it for many years. It's been just a niche that we have not fulfilled yet, but we see a tremendous demand for that in terms of attainable housing for seniors. I'm not going to go too far into the context. I'm sure you're all familiar with the site located in Louisville. It is on the north side of town. It is the gateway kind of coming down 95th Street into Louisville. We share that. We think there's tremendous opportunity here for an architectural presence and a slightly more dense land use that could be quite prominent and quite valuable in the city of Louisville. Just looking at what the previous entitlement was and kind of the scale and density of it, even though it is technically expired, as Rob mentioned, it did feature 4 buildings, 3 stories adjacent to Steel Ranch, which is to the top here. It's kind of a skewed plan here. Those were 3 stories. Those were probably going to sell for over $1 million. It was kind of a disconnect with the senior buyer, even though they were age restricted. There was some detached garages and a small park area. And then there was also some couple of commercial buildings. I think they were allowed up to anywhere from 75,000 to 100,000 square feet. But I think the latest proposal for the Foundry was about 30 or 35,000 square feet. Pretty cool concept, a food hall and inline retail, cool architecture. I think the buildings were about 30 to 35 feet. So that's kind of the running theme, was that height, and pretty much all the development proposals that have come forward so far have been kind of in that range. One weakness I see here, just from an urban design or planning standpoint, was the parking lots out in front. I think they had some good architecture, but there was also some parking areas. And I think you'll see, with a different land use, there could be some more opportunities to have a more prominent presence, architectural frontage along 95th Street. I always think that as I drive down that corridor, it's just kind of a hodgepodge of different land uses and open space, and there's some great views, but it's really just a hodgepodge of different architectural forms as you drive down there. So I think there's some opportunity to create some architectural presence here as you come into Louisville. We have built a few of these neighborhoods located in blue, the cyan color, to the west of the site. This is just kind of looking at the heights of buildings and the uses around the neighborhood. One thing we took a cue from was the Balfour Continuum of Care facility, which is down to the southwest in purple. And seeing that we built the lower density patio homes in Steel Ranch, like David said, we're also planning potentially some patio homes to the north in Lafayette. So there's just kind of this project we see is kind of bridging the gap between lower density detached and attached homes to a full continuum of care. Senior rental could really be a nice transitional housing piece that provides really full maintenance, not just lower maintenance like they have in Steel Ranch, but a full maintenance and some services versus Balfour, which is, full continuum of care, full services and no maintenance. So we see this as kind of like the perfect site for what we have been looking for a long time for some higher density senior rental housing. The comprehensive plan, things have changed a little bit in terms of the city's comprehensive plan since 1.5 years ago. Now there's allowed to be this neighborhood center place type, which is, higher density, up to 30 units per acre, which is a rather intense multifamily use. We are proposing, we've looked at the numbers and looked at 3 stories and, hearing the feedback about having the site transition in density down to the existing patio homes. The numbers just don't really work out as we kind of look at sticking to 3 stories. We think there's great opportunity if we add that 4th story and just a handful of more units, about 30 more units, could make the project more viable and really be a nice, that extra level might be a nice addition to make the project work overall. But we think it does really fulfill the neighborhood center place type. We're just asking for a little bit of height and density to make the project work. And we think that's a good trade-off in meeting with the neighbors and hearing the feedback about being more compatible with existing homes to the west. And the housing plan, which informed the comprehensive plan, identifies a severe undersupply in Louisville and a diversity of housing types, as Rob had mentioned. There's a predominance of single-family detached homes and owner-occupied homes. And there's a number of policies and strategies and goals in the housing plan that really lean towards higher density, multifamily, rental, and senior targeted housing. And as we mentioned, the commercial viability, we're not commercial developers, and we are asking to remove the commercial concurrency and any commercial use from the GDP. We are working on several projects in Lafayette area, and we're coming across this on a couple other sites that we're working on in terms of the commercial just kind of sitting there for 10 or 15 years and not being a viable land use. So we're kind of struggling with that on the parcel to the north and working through that. I know Lafayette is intent on maintaining commercial sites around town, and we're trying to work through that. I don't know if Louisville and Lafayette are rather different in that regard in terms of vacancy rates and all that, but we do see that I think there's good demand for industrial and flex R&D as identified in the comp plan, but retail is just really struggling with upwards of a 15% vacancy rate over the last decade. So as Rob pointed out, we took the cues and we looked at how can we provide some lower height buildings on the west side in the lighter tan bubbles here. This is not a very developed plan, obviously. We have not really studied this in any detail from an architectural standpoint, but we did look at the concept of how many units would we need out there and what would the heights be to make the project work, and how could we arrange the buildings that the parking and the vehicular circulation could be internal to the project, and really have a nice street front facing Steel Ranch Park and Steel Ranch neighborhood with some ranch homes or maybe up to 2-story. I'll show you some concepts that were just precedent images that might allude to what that might look like in terms of intensity and scale and character. And then on the east side along 95th Street, there really is a nice buffer there from the street. It's probably about 75 feet of right-of-way and buffer area. And there's an Excel easement that goes through there, and we think that could be developed with a loop walking trail and pretty extensive landscaping to the extent that we can in that easement area. And really, like I said before, really create a strong architectural presence there along that 95th Street frontage. So in the top right, these are just some character images. The top right is a typical Steel Ranch detached home. There's also some paired patio homes. And the images around there are just different scales of housing that we would envision there. Maybe it could step up from 1 story to 2. The bottom right image is from the townhomes that we built in Steel Ranch, where they are ranches at the end and they kind of go up to 3-story. So just different, we would look to focus the garages internal to the site. So it might not be alley loaded product per se, but we would make sure that there would be 360-degree architecture. But we would not be looking to provide any vehicular access onto Calyx Avenue onto that street. And then along 95th Street, we're just showing some ranges of 3- and 4-story buildings. And, we're asking for up to 50 feet, which would accommodate a 4-story building with a pitched roof. It could be less than that if we went with the modern architectural styles you see in the top left, which isn't really drastically different in height. As you look at the bottom left, a 3-story building with a pitched roof or a 4-story building with a flat roof, both are going to be in the 45 foot range, which I think is in keeping with some of the multifamily and attached buildings in the area. So we're open to different styles. I think we might lean towards a more modern style, but that's, I don't want to say we're going to solicit feedback in that regard, but just understand that the height is not necessarily related to just stories and units all the time. It's about architectural style as well. So, so that's really what we're asking is up to 50 feet, 4 stories. in total height for the site, but we look to restrict it along on the west side of the site. And this is a cross-section is going from left to right is going through, we're depicting the paired patio homes, which are the closest buildings to the site along Calyx Avenue, and then moving to 1 to 2 story homes, attached homes in the middle of the picture here, and then stepping up to 3 and 4 story as you go east towards 95th Street. This is kind of a cross-section along Summit View Drive. And that's it. David, do you want to come up and give a conclusion?
Yeah, maybe just a couple of comments there. You know, there have been a lot of questions about why do we have to push the density? Why is the feasibility tied to that? And it's possible with other multifamily product that may not necessarily be necessary. Our focus on senior requires structured parking and elevators. One of the, I think, fatal flaws of the previous entitlement, as Mike alluded to, is the garages on those condo units, although they were for seniors, were not actually attached to the building. So you did not have weather-protected access to the buildings. You did not have a security type of a feeling when you're walking in the dark from a detached garage to a condo. And so one of the things that's very challenging about this site is if we are going to go up density and we're going to target seniors, one of the things you'd like to have is structured parking so that somebody can pull into a weather-protected garage and go up to an elevator and have a very secure weather-protected situation. In order to do that, in order to absorb the cost of a very expensive garage like that, the unit counts do generally need to go up. The other constraint that we're working with here is to, as best as possible, blend that western edge from a scale standpoint to match better with the homes that we've built previously. If you just took the entire site and said, well, if you went 3-story across the whole thing, I don't think that the 4-story would be quite as important, but you still have that parking related issue. So to try and hone this down to a few questions that would be helpful for us, one thing that we're very excited to see is you have some incentives coming as a part of some of your new, policies to refine affordable housing and things. One comment that I'll make, and I'm jumping ahead actually to number 5 here, affordable housing, I'm not a fan of inclusionary zoning at all. And the reason I'm not a fan of it is that it has a tendency to force affordable housing into a project that is otherwise not affordable. And the reason that's bad is that if the economic drag of providing that affordable housing is not surmountable, then the entire project doesn't come, and it exacerbates the housing problem in aggregate. And so one of the things that we like to see is affordable housing on its own, and when it's on its own, there are all kinds of financial tools that can be utilized to finance that project. And you guys may be hearing about one later tonight. And that's very exciting to see, and we've been a part of projects like that. That being said, we do have inclusionary zoning, and I like the fact that you have flexibility for potentially providing that somewhere other than that site. We know that the preference is on site, and you have a density bonus potentially coming in the future where you would have additional density allowed when you do it on site. Those types of things help. And so we thought we'd make that comment and give you a little bit of feedback about some of the things you're going to see in the future. We're a big fan of trying to create those incentives for the affordable housing. For us, diversity of housing, we think that in Louisville, probably the biggest need, we have a problem. Our town is so great that the seniors that live here and have raised their families don't leave their family house. And one of the best things, one of the biggest elements of public benefit that we could bring is to diversify the housing stock and restore sort of that natural evolution from one housing type to another. That would free people moving into this and potentially into the patio home, folks living in a patio home maybe move into this type of thing, and it creates just a much more healthy stock of housing where all of a sudden the homes near our existing fantastic schools open up for new families to move in, and things are just working a little bit better. Sorry for the soapbox there, but as it's already been highlighted, it's the key elements are the building height, the extra density, and the non-commercial use. So we would love to hear your thoughts about those elements, and we know that they're controversial, and they have, maybe not controversial, they're trade-offs. And we acknowledge those trade-offs, and we're bringing to the table what we do best, and we're hoping that there may be a path forward for us to finally finish up this project. I think that is it. we look forward to your questions and comments.
Yep, and I suspect that we're going to have a number of questions from council. I've got one to start us off, I guess. I just want to understand the density piece a little bit better. You're indicating that under the current entitlement, you could do 174. Tell me, or explain that 205 units versus the 174.
The 30 units per acre would be about 174 units. The 205, I think, represents almost 35 units per acre. And that's not allowed by right. I think the GDP would allow up to 59 currently, but under the comp plan, it would be the 174.
Okay, thanks. That's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure. Good. Council members, do you have questions for either the director or the applicant? Yeah. Actually, not an applicant, or maybe an applicant, but not, anyway. Boulder Creek, go ahead.
I'm curious, can you provide sort of an update on actually the site in Lafayette just to the north? Are those in planning? Is that actually approved? What's the status of that?
Yeah, we've been working on that for about 7 years. And there's various reasons for that. There's they used to have growth management and limited building permits in Lafayette. So we had to time that project out for 2 or 3 years. But the entitlement process is just very long and arduous in Lafayette and slow, to be frank. And so we're kind of bringing that to fruition now. We're hopefully at the finish line. We're struggling a little bit with commercial concurrency requirements that they're imposing. And so we're kind of teetering on the edge there a little bit, but hopefully we'll bring that to fruition here in the next 6 months to a year and get to final plat. And to the north, there is some commercial. It's planned to be 1 to 2 story flex commercial, not inline retail, I don't believe, or anything like that. I think there is one pad site there to the north of Pascal. And we're planning 32 paired patio homes similar to those in Steel Ranch is what we're planning to the north there.
Okay, that's helpful. I asked because we've gotten some comments about people having desired commercial nearby, especially when they first moved into the Steel Ranch neighborhood, and I was wondering what might actually go in across the street. I was wondering, could you say a little bit more about the number 1 on this list of items? What do you mean by incentives for accessible and visitable housing for seniors?
Well, I think that might tie into number 5 is some flexibility there. And that was actually taken from the housing plan. It did mention one of the potential policies the city might consider is incentives for providing senior housing. We don't really have a specific ask, but we are asking for more density, more height. So that could be the incentive there that justifies it. So, but we're kind of peeling that out of the housing plan, and it has been acknowledged in a city document. So we see that kind of as justification, but also, like David mentioned, the inclusionary housing is a big hurdle, particularly if it's rental and it's on-site required. That's very impactful because it's IRR, the impact is ongoing. It's not a one-time impact that you need to clear. So that's it. We're just open to, creative ways we can partner with the city to deliver this type of housing because it's not a done deal. It's not a slam dunk by any means. So, yeah.
Okay. And then just one more. I'm curious, how does rental senior housing sort of fit with, living on a fixed income as many seniors do? I mean, well, I don't know, right? You hear about rents going up in general, and I'm just curious, how does that model sort of fit well with someone who's trying to, live on their retirement at a fairly fixed income?
Yeah, super great question. Rents do go up, and that's painful. But one of the things that we learn, and we actually see this a lot in affordable housing. So we have a small project near the East Boulder Rec Center in Boulder right now. And one of the things that we're constantly sort of having a debate about is what level of affordability does it make sense to actually own? Because when you own the home and the furnace goes out, that's on you. When you own the home and the hot water heater goes out, that's on you. When you get a big hailstorm, the roofing is on you. Senior rental actually provides a lot more predictability from that standpoint because rents do go up. I totally concede that. But one of the big benefits of being a rental owner, maintenance is key, but also just really out of left field expenses have a tendency to be, or not the tendency, it's the structure that's the problem of the landlord. So we're not advocates for everybody living in rental housing, but we are huge advocates for people having that type of an option. And one thing that we see are a lot of single household, a lot of single person households, whether that's men or women, whether that's divorcees or widowers. You know, there's an evolution of life where a small home where there are no maintenance requirements and you have a fixed, rental rate. Maybe you've sold your home, that money goes into savings, and now you have a very predictable type of rent. But rents do go up, and we just think it's part of the tapestry of what, we'd like to see in our community.
Other questions? Councilmember Kirk?
So actually, sort of building on something Councilmember Cooperman was asking about with what you guys are hoping to work with Lafayette to put in, because it's going to feel very much like it's part of the same neighborhood. As people are driving along 95th, with the exception of a little sign telling you're in Lafayette or Louisville, people just think you're still in Louisville, honestly, because it is so beautiful. I'll throw that plug in. But are you looking at doing some high-density 3- and 4-story structures over there along 95th Street as well, or is that just in this parcel?
Yeah, so the dynamics of this parcel are quite a bit different. The zoning is different. And we partnered with the current owner of those two parcels. So the parcel at the corner of 95th and Arapahoe, 95th and Baseline, and 95th Street and Pascal. The same owner, commercial developer, owns that property. And so, as Mike said, we just extended our contract, now going into year 8 of this entitlement. And they contemplated bringing the commercial components of both of those two parcels. Both parcels had commercial and residential. And so our version was our piece of the puzzle would be bringing, very compatible, similar. They would actually be the paired patio homes that we've already built some of in Steel Ranch. And those would be kind of back by the creek area. There's a little bit of topography that doesn't lend itself to higher density. And we think that that's a nice blending. And then there was contemplated to be more commercial at the front. I will tell you, as Mike mentioned, that we may not be able to continue with that project because it looks like they may impose concurrency. And the commercial developer has, I think, in excess of 4 million square feet of commercial development in and around Boulder, and they have no intent to build that anytime soon. The goal was to get it entitled. We were going to do the infrastructure work, giving them pad sites, and then sometime in the future, if there was a need for it, they would add that in. So that project is very much at risk right now.
So with the high density you were talking about doing, is it fully underground parking? Is that what you're hoping to do for the?
Underground is actually substantially more expensive than at grade, what we would call podium parking. So we would prefer to do podium parking. If we were to go underground, there are a lot of cool things about that. You can get more unit count above grade, but the cost is enormous. So to be just perfectly frank, we are early enough in the process where we don't have answers to all of those questions. Based on your feedback and feedback from neighbors, we're going to take that. And first question will be, do we continue at all? Second question is, okay, now that we understand these Venn diagrams, is the thing that appears to be, that has a path of support, is that in our wheelhouse, and how can we bring the right people to the table to make it feasible?
So that's where, when you were talking about the 4th floor, it's actually more like your 3rd floor of living units.
Correct.
So it would be parking and then 2 stories of living units.
That's correct.
Okay, that helps me understand better what the thought process was. I appreciate it. And just on a little side note, I actually like the renderings that are not modern, but thank you.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Whenever you have a modern building that accommodates 4 stories or even 3, that height is much lower. And you're seeing a lot of modern architecture. One of the reasons is because of our height restrictions. So that's a question to you guys. If the character of this area is to be more traditional, then having more flexibility in the height allows us to put some roofs that are more I mean, we would be okay with either type of architecture, but if that's the preference, we can accommodate it with more height.
Council questions? I had a question just about this rental piece. Are you, I guess, are you sold on doing it that way? Are you thinking that, I guess, now maybe let me ask it this way. Are you still contemplating that it may not be rental for seniors, that it might be, ownership outright for these units?
I think there would be, with this type of proposal, there's a potential for ownership along the west edge where it abuts the current Steel Ranch community, because those homes there's a potential for them to be fee simple. In other words, they could be townhomes, likely not single-family homes because we need the density, but those could potentially be townhomes. I would love nothing more, and I think that's our market across the Front Range of Colorado, could use nothing more than substantially more condominiums. And we, have just, it is not a risk that we are willing to take. We have faced many, many construction defect litigation claims, and as a result, that is not a product type that we will build.
Sure. Thanks. It's kind of what I thought.
First up is Mike Melillo, followed by James Lopez.
Hello, my name is Mike Melillo. I'm a Louisville resident. My home sits on Steel Ranch Park, and our front door is on the park, and our address is on Park Lane. We're on the narrow part of Park Lane. And we do not have a driveway. We have a 4-foot skirt that goes into the driveway, which means that we do not have visitor or service access to our house by vehicle, which means that people that have to visit us or service our house need to park on Calyx and then walk to our house. It's unfortunate. Love the house, love the location to live in, but it's not a good place to visit. And because of the driveway. Lack of driveway. So Calyx is very important to us in terms of congestion and visiting vehicles. So if this new development impacts that capacity to that parking area for our visitors, that's a problem. And, I would encourage, just like the paired homes have parking or driveway space, the more parking, the more driveway space that's available to those homes, the better. That would improve the congestion or the parking congestion on Calyx. And that's the only concern that I have with the development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is James Lopez, followed by Nathan DeFrau. I think James left.
Yeah, he's gone.
Okay. Next up is Nathan DeFrau, followed by Gary Larson.
Just one sec, is this thing on? Yeah. All right. Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. My name is Nathan DeFerro, and I live at 779 Tree Street, right here in the Steel Ranch neighborhood. I am speaking on behalf of myself and several other frontline neighbors who have pulled their time to address the severe cumulative impacts of the proposed Videra at Steel Ranch concept plan. We stand unified in asking the City Council to reject this plan, halt the cycle of overdevelopment, and utilize municipal funds to acquire this parcel for permanent public open space. We must look directly at the city staff official analysis on our screens tonight The current general development plan strictly caps this parcel at a maximum of 59 dwelling units and a 30-foot height limit. Boulder Creek Neighborhoods is asking this council to completely obliterate our neighborhood zoning rules by slamming up to 205 units here, nearly 4 times the legal limit. They are trying to force 50-foot, 4-story structures directly adjacent to our existing single-story patio homes, while completely abandoning the neighborhood commercial space they are legally required to build. This free market has shown us for 10 years that high-density projects do not work on this constrained corner. Because this plot has sat dormant for a decade, it is no longer just a neglected dirt lot with tall grass. Over the last 10 years, this undisturbed space has evolved into a necessary urban habitat for local wildlife. Preserving this land as permanent open space isn't just about stopping a building. It is about protecting the local ecosystems and urban wildlife that rely on this corridor, while maintaining a natural open gateway for the entire community. The developer attempts to justify the requested variances by labeling this as a transit-oriented development. But as frontline residents, we know the actual history of our infrastructure. We watched the RTD Route 228 bus line fail right here. The 228 loop used to loop directly through the Hecla area, but because of the neighborhood stops went completely unused and empty buses routinely blew past them, the line had to be entirely reconfigured and pushed out to the highway perimeter. The robust hyperlocal public transit required to support the 205 high-density units simply does not exist. Every single resident moving into this complex will be entirely auto-dependent. Furthermore, the Boulder Valley School District's official review letter exposes the flaws in the developer's community benefit narrative. BVSD notes that our local schools are in a state of severe enrollment decline. Louisville Elementary is projected to plummet to just 60% capacity by 2029. The school district explicitly states that this senior targeted complex will do absolutely nothing to bring the young families or the child attainable housing that Louisville desperately needs to stabilize our school system. Additionally,
Nathan?
their own context map highlights Balfour housing.
Hold on.
Nathan?
Yeah?
You said you were pooling time.
Yeah, sorry,
I need to know who you're pooling
my
time
mom
on.
is right back there.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Should I continue where I was at?
Yep.
All right. Their own context maps. Additionally, their own context map highlights Balfour Senior Housing right across South Boulder Road. This corridor is already heavily saturated with senior housing. We do not need to violate our strict 35-foot height limits just to duplicate a footprint that already dominates this intersection. This massive influx of new vehicles will completely overwhelm our neighborhood streets. The developer's conceptual layout shows a second neighborhood entrance designed to dump traffic directly into our quiet interior residential roads like Tree Street and Calyx Drive. This isn't a traffic mitigation tool. It is a direct safety hazard. Our streets are highly active every single day with walking families, daily pedestrians, and local neighborhood kids riding fast-moving e-bikes, creating a massive conflict point inside our neighborhood interior is a disaster waiting to happen. We cannot review Videra in a vacuum. Right across the street, the city of Lafayette is simultaneously processing the developer's Indian Peaks filing 19 proposal for an additional 63 units. When you would add the two projects together, developers are trying to slam nearly 300 units into a single intersection directly adjacent to the heavy daily vehicle trips already generated by the planned restaurant and medical center traffic on the Lafayette side. As an avid pedestrian who walks these blocks every single day, I am telling you plainly, I will not feel safe walking in my own neighborhood if this is built. Because this is a shared regional crisis, the solution should be regional too. I urge the city of Louisville to coordinate directly with the city of Lafayette to jointly buy this land from the developer using our own public space funds.
Let's transform a decade-old dirt lot into a proud permanent regional park buffer that protects the public safety and local wildlife on both sides of Highway 42. Reject this concept plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan.
Next up is Gary Larson, followed by Mark Cathcart.
Good evening. My name is Gary Larson. My wife and I have lived happily at Steel Ranch Park, right on the south side of the park for the last 14 years. We were about the fourth or fifth house there. We've been very happy with the construction, with what Boulder Creek has done there. The neighborhood is wonderful. I've spoken, some of you, not all of you, have seen me here before, speaking on a lot of different issues. I'm usually anti those issues because it's just massive construction and high density and little planning. And I went to management at Boulder Creek after last, I guess 2 years ago, when we last went through this type of iteration on this lot here, and said, why don't you guys get in the mix? And I was told that they've wanted to for a long time, and well, by golly, here they are. So I think it's a great opportunity for us. They understand the neighborhood and the concept. Steel Ranch has a total of 68 patio homes, as well as 24 paired homes, in addition to the family homes that are there. And you see a lot of the people here tonight that live in the patio homes or the paired homes. It's a very vibrant, elderly community. And it's that's by design, which I think is very good, because once you get to baby boomer age, which I'm beyond at this point, you start to think about these things, about how large is your house? Does it need to be that large? Is it functional? Is it designed for seniors? Well, my wife just recently had major surgery, 18 hours of surgery on her hip last September. I'm the home caregiver, which I never advise you to do unless you love your spouse. It's not a fun job, but it's got to be done. And once you get to that age, you appreciate a smaller home designed for seniors. Well, after my wife's surgery, she came home and she's using a walker now and a wheelchair, and she is able to, with the insight from Boulder Creek when they built our patio home, to wheel herself around the whole upstairs area because of the 30-inch wide doors. She can go into the master bedroom and turn a couple corners and get back into the closet and show me what stuff she wants me to get out for her to wear that day. With no stairs on the main floor, other than, you know, the stairs that go down to the basement, which in our case, in most cases that we all have there, you've probably got guest rooms downstairs and a playroom for grandkids and
Jeffrey, I apologize. Your time is up.
Oh, okay. Well, that's too bad. I wasn't watching the clock. Thank you for your service to the community.
Next up is Mark Cathcart, followed by Jeffrey Gass.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager, Deputy City Manager, Director Zaccaro. It's good to see you all again. I never envy you your decisions. They're always tough. Tonight, no more so in terms of the feedback that you give to the developer. Everything is connected. You're not considering a single neighbourhood here tonight. This project, in general terms, seems to be great. It's much better than all the recent ones that we've seen in terms of public benefit, which I think is important. All of our neighbourhoods return a substantial amount of money in property tax and sales tax to the city, between $4 and $6 million per neighbourhood. If a neighbourhood gets built with no public benefit, you're asking that neighbourhood to subsidise all the others. I simply don't understand the ongoing fascination with driving to the store. I just don't. Why can't this neighbourhood have a bodega? Why can't it have a Whole Foods local? Why can't it have a King Soopers mini? I just don't understand it, so that the residents can drive to get bread, milk, and retail pharmacy goods, toothbrushes. Are we really asking people to drive everywhere all the time? Sure, we know King Soopers is down the road, don't we? So it's really not a problem. They can use the underpass, go down the main road, go to King Soopers, come back. Except you have to ask yourself how long it will be there. Seriously, you have to ask yourself. I know a company that doesn't own that King Soopers promised not to shut it down. As we speak, Lafayette City Council is considering a concept plan to build on the southwest corner of Arapahoe and 287 a large mixed-use development that includes a Target and a Trader Joe's, both of them. If that gets built, it is extremely unlikely that anyone gets in a car is going to drive to the new King Soopers down on McCaslin. So that's a complete loss of sales tax to the city. I understand, I've sat in enough of these meetings in the last 11 years that residential developers don't want to be required to build commercial. There has to be some way to achieve this, though. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy your deliberations.
Thank you, Mark.
Next up is Jeffrey Gass, followed by Cindy Bedell.
Good evening, Jeffrey Gass, Meadowlark Drive in Louisville. First, I'd like to state I've always been in favor of getting something built on this plot of land. It's been going on since we moved in, when it was all commercial, to now where Boulder Creek wants to change it to all residential. I'm selfish because that piece of property is part of our metro district. So I don't think I would want the city to take it over. Then the rest of us would be responsible to paying down the bond of the metro district. Saying that, though, what Boulder Creek is asking for is a 200% increase in density from 59 units to up to 204. I think a little bit too much. The height increase is 67% higher, from the 30 feet now to up to 50 feet. We also have the issue with the grading of that piece of property from west to east. It goes up. So 50 feet would actually be a heck of a lot higher as we get closer to Highway 42. I would recommend that somehow whoever builds there regrade that down so it becomes flat and lower, so the patio homes in phase one wouldn't be looking at 50-foot plus heights by once you take in the grading. One question is they talk about they need all these units to make it a feasible project. Is the cost of purchasing the land, you're paying too much for the land? I'm curious about that question. Maybe you're paying too much for the land, and that can help bring down the density. You answered the question about the underground parking, that it is more expensive, but again, it is a thought that maybe there's incentives with the city that you can get some type of rebates or benefits from that. My last question about the rental part, after you guys build the property, are you planning to sell it, or are you guys going to manage it? Are you going to sell those retail rental properties to a REIT to then become the manager, or are you going to be the local owner? That would also be part of my concern. That would be some sort of out-of-state company that now takes this over after you guys finish developing. So those are questions I'd like City Council to ask. Get definitive answers before you make a determination on this property, but again, stating I need something to be built there to help reduce my metro tax bill, because I'm tired of paying more to that than I pay for the school taxes in Boulder Valley. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff.
Next up is Cindy Bedell, followed by Joshua Gordon.
Oh, hi, I'm Cindy Bedell. I live in Ward 2, and I'm one of these seniors who are supposed to get out of our single-family homes to make room for new families, I guess, and pay high rents in an ugly 4-story apartment complex because that's somehow better for us if we're widowed or divorcee or whatever, and we can't afford to replace our water heater. So anyway, I just want to say, as somebody who's maybe a teenage elderly person, I just found this premise like so absurd. I had to say something. And I think that, Councilperson Cooperman is correct when he says, how does this senior rental housing model fit with living on a fixed income? So many of us have lower mortgages or paid off mortgages. So in this situation, why would we go and pay, I don't know how much rent, $3,000, $4,000 a month rent with no equity, with no access to our yards or outdoors or our neighborhood? So I just think that the premise of this is honestly kind of absurd as somebody in that age group. And secondly, the way I understand this, they're requesting to increase from 59 units to 205 units, and from a 30-foot height to a 50-foot height. And as another speaker said, that's a 4-time increase in units, and all in exchange for no inclusionary zoning. And then I heard the applicant say, well, sure, you might like a more traditional style with the gable roof, but we'll only consider that if you give us the increased height. So no offense to the applicant, but this whole thing just is not sitting well. So I hope that you won't approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Next up is Joshua Gordon. Joshua, you're muted on your end. Joshua, I know it looks like you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. And he's muted again.
Do we have any others in the queue?
No.
Yeah. I think we're going to have to move on, unfortunately. Sorry about that. Pardon me? Sure, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, he can write comments since we're unable to accommodate his verbal comments tonight, and Joshua will consider those as well. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
All right. One other potential workaround is that it is about 8:07, and I think we need to take a break in between just our typical 8 o'clock break. And he may, if we can get him on afterward, I'm willing to, if he's able to come on, that's great when we get back. But I want to do a time check. We got a lot to do tonight. We knew this was going to be a busy meeting. So council, forge ahead. Thoughts? Mayor Pro Tem?
I personally would like to wrap up this item and then go to our break.
I think I would rather take the break only because I think we're going to have comment amongst ourselves about this one. I don't know that we're going to be able to finish it quickly. But it's a good suggestion. Let's come back at 8. Let's come back at 8:15 and raring and ready to go. Okay? Thanks. Josh back or not?
He's right here.
No, not that Josh. The Josh who was calling in.
Oh.
Josh, you can try again. You're muted on your end, though.
All right. I think sorry, we've given enough opportunity, but he can, as Mayor Pro Tem said, send in his comments. Glad to get them. All right, we don't have any more public comment, so why don't we bring it back to council? Really, I think we've got three main issues, as I heard it. One is the height limit. One is the density piece, and the other is, of course, kind of getting rid of the commercial piece, which, gosh, we've been dealing with various iterations of that for 10 years, I think, or more. So I guess I would like to frame it that way so we can kind of get through this discussion fairly good, give some guidance, and hopefully that getting those questions answered are the main things that the applicant's looking to hear. I see some nods out there. So who wants to start us off on that? Okay. Councilmember Hefner.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for coming with this interesting plan and for the community outreach, which I think is very important. I sort of look at this and think we're through the new comp plan. We've made some high-level policy decisions about this area, and it is fair on some level, I think, to start using that as the lens through which we view this decision. And certainly that's how I will be looking at it. That being said, I think the proposal maybe goes even a bit farther than the designated land use type we have in the comp plan. And I think, as we've talked informally about how are we going to handle requests for additional height or additional density or additional whatever the case might be, I think the thing we're looking for is some kind of, or at least that I'm looking for, is some kind of substantial community benefit. I think you check part of that box by bringing a new housing type that we don't have very much of at all. I think there's probably a second part of that box to tick, whether it's, I understand the limitations of on-site affordable, but whether it's something in the affordable housing category, something in the trails and open space category, something connectivity, multimodal, transportation. With this project, as is the case for all projects, parking and traffic will be an issue. So sort of thinking through, are there creative traffic demand management solutions you can bring or parking solutions you can bring as part of this that sort of counterbalance the request for extra height or extra density. But I don't see anything here that's a showstopper for me. I think it's a great project and would love to see sort of this configuration of housing come to Louisville and offer some options that we don't have right now. So thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Fahey.
I will echo what Councilor Dietrich just said and add that perhaps there wasn't enough outreach to the neighbors. It sounds to me like you reached some, but not all of the neighbors that would be really impacted. And so if there could be some more public outreach, that would be helpful. I'm also concerned about the additional traffic that it's going to generate, not just on Calyx, but on 95th also. And so those would be my two concerns.
Others? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. So I'll start with the commercial question. And I think, at this point in time, I could entertain the idea of removing the commercial aspect from the land use there, given the impact and the viability of the project and what we're seeing just regionally as far as unoccupied retail space. I think Councilmember Hefner really nicely summed up my thoughts as well as it relates to density and height. In concert with our comp plan, this certainly stretches it beyond that. I think for me, I would pull in Councilmember Fahey's comments about continued public engagement. We saw a really beautiful exchange with the project over by Little Italy, which was really informative and helpful for me as a council member in the decision-making process. So you are very familiar with the community of Louisville. While not required, it's certainly beneficial to have robust, I will call it, engagement with surrounding residents in close proximity to a development. And yes, I think as a whole, you know, our community showed up tonight, had a lot of really great questions and comments. Tonight's just not the point in time where we're going to get into that level of detail about those things, but certainly slotting those away in my mind for when we do get that level, bringing those back to the surface for additional conversation.
Councilmember Kern.
Great, thank you. Thanks for bringing the idea. I'm definitely a fan of Boulder Creek neighborhoods and appreciate the projects that you've done in our community and in others around the area. I like the thoughtfulness in listening to what a lot of the community members had to say with previous developments, like I think it was the Toll Brothers ones that came, to have a little less height on the west side close to the current Steel Ranch residents. I am concerned with going over the 30 feet, and a lot of it has to do with the view shed from Highway 42, I'll be honest. That is, like I was saying, as you're driving 42, as soon as you are getting past there and you go past the eye doctor and the big tall trees, all of a sudden it opens up. And it's a big piece, or when you're coming into Louisville even and you're looking at those mountains, it's a big part of it. And I think that 50 feet, given that it is running parallel to Highway 42, or at least that was what was presented to us, versus perpendicular, which gives you corridors of view. By running parallel, you're just creating a giant wall. That's one of my concerns on visually how it'll appear to everybody else in the community as they're driving along. Although I have to admit, a lot of your projects look very nice. They're aesthetically appealing. I think, you know, it is in keeping with a lot of the character that we talk about in Louisville housing. It's in keeping with the character of what I think you've already built in Steel Ranch, right? Building maybe a 3-story, and I understand there's feasibility issues with this, but these are my things. A 3-story there that has that similar community tie-in and feel architecturally, I think would add more symmetry and be more just appealing. And for me, my concern with the rental is a price point, the fact that it's not going to be potentially attainable or be able to have the inclusionary housing is, you mentioned that may or may not be possible. And that's a concern for me, that in that rental market, which is where you may find people who need that, who are seniors, that won't be part of the project. So, thank you.
Okay, any other council comments? Go ahead, Councilmember Cooperman.
Let's see. Yeah, so I guess when I was reviewing the packet materials, I was largely thinking about the increased height and increased density, I guess in similar terms to how Councilmember Hefner was thinking about them, that they're a little bit above what we call out in the comprehensive plan, which also for me is not a showstopper. But I was thinking, you know, maybe we grant you, just hypothetically, you know, 4 stories if you're doing the include the affordable housing on site or something like that. So I would really like to see that community benefit of one sort or another coming in with a project that is exceeding what's in our comprehensive plan. I guess some other thoughts. I mean, in terms of the view shed, I would be sort of interested, if you proceed, like, right, say if you were coming from the north going south, there might still be a good view shed, like sort of right at the intersection. So you sort of looking towards Louisville, and you're not yet in front of the new buildings, but you might be able to see, still out towards the mountains from there. And likewise, if you're coming from within Louisville toward the north, right, as you approach the intersection with Summit, right, there still might be a view shed there. So I'm a little bit less concerned about a building, blocking the view shed directly sort of along the width of that building from 95th or 96th, whichever it is there. Let's see. And then finally, in terms of the commercial, I guess I think like Councilmember Hamilton said, I think at the moment okay with giving up commercial at that site. As some people stated, it would be really nice to have a little bit of commercial there, so that people could easily walk or bike to something. But then again, like there is commercial to the south, and there's commercial across the street to the east, and there might be commercial right to the north. And they're relatively nearby, and so people, can walk to those or bike to those. And with having more residents in that area, that might be something to spur a little bit of commercial growth in those existing areas, or perhaps bring some new commercial possibilities to those areas. So I think those are my thoughts for the moment.
We've had good comments, I think, so far, and I don't want to reiterate them. I think I tend to agree with Councilmember Cooperman's comments, which kind of incorporated a number of others. I'm not, a hard no on 4 stories, but I think you're going to need to wow us a little, I think, on community benefit. I think I'm not particularly a fan of gabled roofs on that. I think that strikes me as less interesting. And if there's a way to bring down the height a little bit based on that, great. I'm not sure that was really what you were implying. The density is a little higher. I'd prefer maybe more than Councilmember Hefner to sort of stay within the range that we contemplated in the comp plan. But the comp plan isn't it's not a legislative document. So I'll be looking forward to, seeing some other stuff coming forward from you. As far as the commercial, we have banged the drum on that for 10 years or more, certainly since I have been on council, and hoped against hope something would change, something would happen, and everything would be fine and rosy, and we'd all sing Kumbaya. It's not going to happen. It hasn't happened. There's no market, and there's not going to be any market. So one thing I was going to suggest, maybe the only thing I'd suggest about the height and the density is if you didn't step down markedly, but a little bit more gradually. I don't want to make any enemies in the neighborhood, but you might be able to fit a little bit more in a lower, in 3 stories, if you kept the 3 stories going a little further to the west. But that's for you guys to decide. I think you guys are a great group, and we really hope that you'll take this as a positive and come back to us soon. Is there any other comment? Right. Any other questions? Any other questions from Boulder Creek before we go? Or comments, maybe? No.
No other questions. One clarification, the variance we're not looking for is to be out of the There we go. Just a point of clarification, we're not asking to not be a part of the inclusionary zoning. We understand that's a requirement. And our preference would be to have optionality. Maybe it can be done on site, and we'll look to do that. The potential to do it off-site, partnering with another developer who could maybe make an all-affordable project, or maybe there's something nearby that we could convert. But that's a requirement that we are not looking to subvert, but we like the optionality.
Thanks.
Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Next is concept plan, Centennial Parkway Affordable Housing Project. Are we going to have a applicant presentation on this, or?
No formal presentation. They're here for questions, though.
Okay.
Okay. Ready to go? Great. So Jeff Hurt with Community Development. This is another concept plan for, in this case, a proposed 100-unit, 100% affordable housing project in Centennial Valley. The proposed project would go into one building that goes up to 45 feet in height, and it's a 2.8 acre site. The next step in this process would be a GDP amendment similar to the last case in terms of just setting forth what the allowed uses are and the densities and the building heights. And so all the detailed site and building design stuff would happen through subsequent processes after that. So we're a bit redundant from the last case, but just clarifying on the purpose of the concept plan again, this is for non-binding feedback and for general early input from council to the applicant. There's no staff recommendation or detailed analysis. And that detailed sort of site planning level review does happen during subsequent stages. That will have public hearings. Some site background. The site is governed by the Centennial Valley General Development Plan that establishes the zoning for this site. There's no residential allowed on the site. It's only commercial, hence the need for the GDP amendment request. It's a mix of land uses around the subject site between vacant to the north and east, and then south and west is commercial office buildings. Great transit access nearby, the new King Soopers Marketplace nearby, so there's walkable commercial services nearby. And the transportation infrastructure is sort of well supported to accommodate additional development. And this is just an image of the general development plan. If you wanted to come back to it, it's just a one-page document, very simple, that sets forth the uses, densities, allowable square footage, things like that. This is what would need to be amended following this discussion tonight. So getting into the specifics of the proposal. So again, it's for 100 permanently affordable housing units, a mix of unit types. The density on a 2.8 acre site is about 37 dwelling units per acre. The building height would be up to 45 feet, which would accommodate up to 4 stories on portions of the building. The proposal, and there's a narrative in your packet with more specifics, but is for, again, this to be 100% deed restricted affordable and specifically to households that earn between 30% and 80% of area median income. And the average across the 100 units would be 60% area median income. There is 1 parking space per unit proposed. It's wouldn't be required, but would be proposed. And the applicant did provide some images in terms of view shed and view corridors. There's a few more in your packet. I'll just highlight a couple of them here. I know it's hard to see on the screen, but this first set of images is if you were standing on Centennial Parkway looking west, like just west of McCaslin. The subject building is, I know it's very hard to see, but outlined in the bottom right image in the context of the surrounding buildings. This next image is a little easier to see. So this is if you were standing on Centennial Parkway, a little bit further west of McCaslin, looking west toward Davidson Mesa. This shows the subject potential 4-story building and its impact on views. So this is new information, and we apologize this wasn't in the packet, but we thought it was important to share. We did a little bit of research on the surrounding building heights. And so looking in the immediate vicinity, the building to the south is 35 feet and 2 stories. These are commercial buildings. And actually the buildings on the same block a little bit further south than that, while they're 3 stories, are actually 46 feet in height. So they're essentially even to what is being proposed. It's just that commercial floor plate makes it different. Getting into a little bit more detail on the proposal. So this is a unique situation. The city is actually going to be the applicant for this GDP amendment because there is such a direct tie to policy support and explicit guidance to take this action. So the city is actually partnering with Coble, the property owner, for this GDP amendment. And so happy to talk more about kind of the philosophy and approach behind that. There's a number of reasons. Another reason is that the city is also in support and sort of partnering with Coble on a Proposition 123 land banking grant to support this specific project. So it is unique, and it's a unique situation in terms of the applicant developer structure as well. Again, the GDP amendment, which would be the next step after this, would sort of simply establish what are the allowed uses on this site, what's the allowed density, and what are the building heights. And so the affordable component would also be tied to this, and happy to talk through how that would work. And importantly, I'll touch on this in the very end as well. This is on kind of a unique expedited timeline because there is a grant or an application due for tax credits, for low-income housing tax credits. That's due very soon, so we're doing our best to move this forward as we can. So we did want to share some broader context. This is not part of the sort of the decision point teed up for council tonight, but we did want to share that the Coble team has been working with city staff on a sort of broader proposal to look at other sites within Centennial Valley for residential. This is very conceptual. There's very little detail. Again, this is about this one site. But if you look in this image, which I know is hard to read, the sites in pink are essentially the ones that are under consideration for future residential. Again, no specific plans submitted. That will be through a subsequent GDP amendment request, potentially, or even concept plan. But we did want to share that there's sort of a broader context here. And on those sites, the current discussions have been for those sites to closely align with the comp plan, potentially lower densities and lower building heights than what's proposed for this specific site, because that would be market rate housing. Happy to talk more about that as well. Won't get into the policy analysis, but there are several policies that will need to be evaluated against the proposal in terms of the comp plan and the housing plan. I mentioned the Proposition 123 commitment. I'll touch on that briefly. We did have actually provide an attachment in the staff report that lists all the applicable, as we see it, comp plan policies that will need to be evaluated sort of on balance with each other, comp plan and housing plan policies. And so at a high level, this potential project is in the Centennial Valley Opportunity Area, which does call for some support for residential. And certainly its proximity to transit and services is also supported with numerous comp plan policies. We also feel it's important to point out that there are other sort of policies that need to be looked at on balance related to neighborhood compatibility, building heights, density. So all this is kind of one package of a balanced set of policies to look at. The specific place type in the comprehensive plan that this site is within is the integrated development / flex place type. That does support multifamily residential as a primary land use. And it's similar to the last case that you just looked at in terms of the building heights and the density. So building heights are, and this is guidance. I think we've all kind of touched on that tonight, but the building height guidance in the comp plan is for up to 3 stories and up to 30 dwelling units per acre. And I know this was mentioned, but it is there is explicit language in the comp plan that provides the flexibility in terms of sort of the level of community benefit something is provided relative to the densities and heights explicitly. So we would look at that closely. Affordable housing is mentioned as one of those community benefits. And then the housing plan, certainly you've heard a lot about that tonight, but certainly a lot of goals that align with the proposed request. Other factors as well, as a reminder, our commitment as part of the Boulder County Regional Housing Partnership for 12% of our housing to be permanently affordable. We're currently well short of that, so a project like this would certainly help with that percentage. Last thing I want to mention regarding Proposition 123, a reminder that we as a city committed to taking steps toward building, our metric was 77 affordable housing units by the end of this year. Happy to talk about kind of where that's at in our next steps, but this being a 100-unit project and that the goal being 77 units, it's clear that it would address that, that goal. This specific action, and specifically the city being an applicant and doing a city-initiated rezoning, essentially what this is on the council work plan as well. And so this is the last slide I'll leave on. Some of the key issues, similar to the last case, are first, building heights. So a portion of the building is proposed to go up to 4 stories, and that would stay within the 45-foot threshold. The density, again, the flex place type goes up to 30 dwelling units per acre. This would be up to 37. But again, that flexibility in the comp plan is there. And then certainly last but not least, the timeline for the low-income housing tax credits is a key consideration, and that is coming soon. So with that, we're actually moving this application forward very quickly, and not in the ideal sort of sequence, but it is actually scheduled for Planning Commission next week. And so we'll take this feedback tonight and make any adjustments as necessary. And certainly up to council how this proceeds as well. So that concludes the presentation. We do have a representative from Colbel here as well for any questions, but I don't believe they have a formal presentation that they're going to make.
All right, council, questions of Mr. Hurt or Colbel? Yes, Councilmember Kern.
Great, thank you. Thanks for bringing this forward to us. I appreciate Colbel stepping up and kind of answering a call, if you will. There's just a couple of things. I took some time before this, given the proposal, and I drove out, I walked the site, I was looking for it from kind of a usability, a livability, a viewability, as you heard me comment earlier. And I think for me personally, I was curious to know how you were managing these partial, like I think they're going to be almost like a garden level in this, as it slopes. From an accessibility perspective, will it just be like half of the building will be accessible without stairs for people?
The full building will be accessible, so via ramps, it'll be elevator served. So, but the way we will be dealing with the terrain difference there is one side of the building will be 4 stories, and then on the south side it will actually be 3. So that's how we found that to be the most cost-effective way to really deal with the slope of the land and to keep the building height at an appropriate height.
Okay. The other thing that I was curious about is there, and this may be something for our staff, is there any proposal to make sure that there's sidewalk connectivity? That was the one thing I didn't see, not on Centennial Parkway, but what is the street that connects like the Home Depot to? I picture that being a heavily traveled access, since that would be the #1 access to get over to public transit, and I just didn't know if that was in the plan.
Sure. We haven't gotten into that level of detail, but certainly we do want connectivity with this site. That's what we really like about this site, is that the ability to quickly connect and easily connect these residents to transit right at 36 and McCaslin. Obviously, the adjacentness of King Soopers, two of the biggest factors with these affordable communities are you're dealing with affordability of housing and transportation, and this really checks the box as far as being able to provide great public transportation and also affordable housing with immediate access to direct fresh foods as well as employment opportunities and other retail. So we certainly want to connect to the surrounding area to be able to provide that to the residents.
And I'm so sorry, this might be a staff question too, and the second half might be yours. Is there currently any design standards for that area? I noticed that most of those commercial buildings that you were noting the heights of, they're very similar in their look and feel. And I didn't know if there was a design standard that we currently have, and that's why they're similar.
We don't. This is a bit of an outlier because it would be residential in a commercial area. So that's something we would also have to address at the subsequent kind of PUD stage. Right now, this is about use and density and height, really. I know
Yeah, so I'm done with the questions, actually. Thank you so much.
Question for sure.
And I can speak to that a little bit. As you know, we met in the fall when you did the tour, and we are utilizing the same architect here on this property. So Bryant Flink Architecture and Design. So how I believe this will look and feel is similar to what you saw on our most recent project down in Lone Tree, but we try to be very thoughtful and considerate with how we are designing these. We want this to look and feel like a market rate community, even though it is not. A lot of time is put onto the early parts of this design to make sure we're putting the dollars where we can to make sure it looks and feels like a property people are proud to live in.
Thank you.
questions? Yes, Councilmember Cooperman.
As one of the maps showed, there are several lots in the valley that could be developed. I'm wondering how you chose this particular lot for the project.
Quite honestly, I like the adjacentness and the connectivity to the RTD bus rapid transit there at McCaslin and 36. I like the connectivity to King Soopers, to the local employment basis. So I believe this site really checks the most boxes. If you were to look at the sites that were on that map, this is the one that I would have said, this I think makes the most sense for density and affordable housing.
Okay. And then I've, I guess, two questions for staff. Could you elaborate a little bit more on what it means for the city to be taking the lead on the GDP amendment or to be partnering on the GDP amendment?
Yeah, it's unique, but this is a fairly unique situation. I think, from our perspective, and others certainly correct me or chime in, but there's such a clear line between our adopted policy in terms of recent policy, housing plan, comp plan, and explicitly stating taking this very action to implement the comp plan in terms of a city-initiated rezoning. And again, it's on the council work plan as well. Mm-hmm. So I think the clearness of the guidance is really what is driving this. And we certainly want to implement the comp plan and have it be a living document that moves the housing needle forward. So yeah, it's really about the policy guidance. I don't know if others have any there.
Okay. But I guess practically speaking, though, we would, I don't know, for instance, we'd be allocating staff time more so than sort of just review of an application towards this application. Is that how it might work, or?
So I think one of the main differences is we're working very closely with them on, we're not just receiving an application. So we're working with them on how to structure the rezoning application is a big difference. But from a technical standpoint, they're just providing us an authorization letter and we are the applicant with their authorization to rezone the property. But I think the difference is really just how we're working and coordinating with them in a different way than another applicant that might just come in with the proposal.
Okay, that's helpful. And then one last little question. So the idea would be for the GDP amendment to have something in it which basically requires that the development be 100% affordable for the new provisions in the GDP amendment to hold. Is that correct? Or that's the idea? Or?
Yeah, sure. It's exactly, yeah. So the proposal that you will likely see soon is to explicitly have that language on the actual GDP, and there will be an agreement that accompanies the GDP, so it's all tied together. That, yeah, it's deed restricted affordable per the proposal.
Yeah. And I would add that the proposal we anticipate is going to include that this would be an alternative agreement that would provide their 12% affordable housing for the remainder of the rezoned area for the residential.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Any other council questions? All right. Why don't we go to any public comment? Do we have any comment? No? All right, good. Then we bring it back to council. And it looks like we really, again, sort of building height, building density.
Mayor, I apologize. Someone just raised their hand online.
Okay.
Do you want to take it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Jesse Delaplane.
Hi, yes. Yes, my name is Jessie Delaplane. I'm a resident on the adjacent Dyer Road and just wanted to put a few comments, questions, and some feedback for the council to consider on this. Yeah, so I'm glad to hear that one of the council people did drive over and take a look at the site. I think you probably also noticed that it's a very commercial feel and not really a residential feel. But one thing I would say with the residents of Dyer Road is that it's unincorporated Boulder County. So I would have questions about the communication between Boulder County and City of Louisville on this project, because I think Dyer Road would be directly affected by the impacts to additional residential housing in this area. Same as like putting in the King Supers there. There's been an exceptional increase in traffic coming up Dyer Road, which is a residential road. We get excessive amounts of cars speeding up and down the road every day. And I'd like to, consider, for the future, if there's going to be additional residential development here, that there's signage to, direct traffic, and similarly along Centennial Parkway, that road was narrowed a number of years ago, so I would obviously want to make sure that additional traffic studies are done to see if that can support the additional traffic through that area. I think, but my biggest concern is to make sure that, I guess, City of Louisville is consulting with Boulder County on this for that intersection right there of Centennial and Dyer Road, and the impact that the additional traffic will have on our area. We had a sign that said no US 36 access, but that was taken down, and so we still get hundreds and hundreds of cars driving up and down the road every day, maybe thinking they can access 36, but they can't, and then they speed back down the road. And so, especially with the King Supers about to open, I've been looking for additional signage to ensure that traffic is directed not down Dyer Road, and I haven't seen that yet. And I guess I would expect the same to be happening for additional residential development that might be taking place here. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, let's bring it back to council. As I was starting to say there, I think building height, density are the main piece there. Let's open it up to you to raise the questions that you have or make the comment. Yep.
Yeah, I'll just say I think this one, for me at least, is a little more straightforward insofar as I think it checks the box of substantial community benefit by being affordable housing, and so I don't have really any reservations about this one at all, and I'll be excited to see it move forward in whatever form. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Similar for me. This one, and from my point of view, is quite different from the last application, not only due to the significant community benefit with the 100% affordable housing on site, but when we look at the heights of the surrounding buildings, it seems to kind of fit in a little bit more for me compared to what we had just discussed. And given the extensive community benefit, I think, pulling the lobs, it's a mix between levers and knobs. Levers and lobs, I'm going to trademark that. Like density and height seems reasonable to me, given the community benefit for this particular project. So I hope we keep this moving forward.
I will echo what's already been said. I think this is a wonderful project, and I hope it goes through as quickly as possible. I also drove by it to check out what the visual impact would be. I think it's a wonderful spot for affordable housing with the proximity to the public transit and the grocery store and other retail that's in that McCaslin area. So I hope this goes through very quickly. Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Kern.
Thank you. Nice to see you again. Sorry.
Nice to see you, and I apologize. I did not introduce myself. My name is Luke Cannon. I'm with Coble and Company. I manage all of our multifamily affordable housing, so excited to be here speaking to you tonight, and I appreciate the words of support we've received, and we very much look forward to advancing this conversation.
So I do. I mean, when I went and I was looking at the height and the other buildings, it seemed to me that your request to be able to provide the housing it will blend in with that area pretty well. And I have seen your other more recent construction, and they do. They fully look like market rate. This is like absolutely the opposite of what I always say everywhere else with housing in Louisville. This particular lot, I actually like the fact that you maybe can look at more of the commercial design standard. That's why I was asking about the design standards, because it will fit in so much better if it blends in. Sure. And it will feel more, it'll feel softer, believe it or not. I mean, it sounds strange to say it that way, but if it has that more of that commercial look to it, I think that it's gonna feel better as people are utilizing that space. But I'm all in favor of the project. I'm all supportive. I did have a question about the affordability piece with the different AMIs. You had included a chart that had some very specific numbers of units for AMI. Is that a flexible thing, or is that part of like the LIHTC financing, something that you have to meet these?
So for LIHTC financing, we can do income averaging. So we are proposing here a range of units from 30% AMI to 80% AMI. Just as long as you are below 60% average, CHFA needs to see that. So that is what we're proposing here. The average would be around 58, 59%, but we offer deeper affordable units at the 30% AMI, and that's offset with a slightly higher, almost into the missing middle of 80%. So people that can't income qualify for 60%, but they can't afford to move into a market rate community actually has an opportunity here at 70 and 80% AMI units, which we are proposing.
That's really terrific. I appreciate that, because I did look at some of the new positions that are being posted for the new King Supers, and the absolute lowest paid positions are still above 30% AMI. So I thought that was interesting, and that this would be an opportunity for people to potentially live very close to where they could work.
Absolutely.
Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, Councilmember Cooper.
I will echo my fellow council members. I'd just say that I'm really excited about this project. And yeah, I look forward to it coming to fruition soon.
Thank you. Sorry.
From my perspective, full-throated support, absolutely terrific. Looking forward to seeing it come forward. Anybody else? Right?
Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
Appreciate
and I guess you'll make the deadline and all of that.
We are working hard to get there.
Very good. Thanks. All right. We can move on to ordinance number 1927, series 2026, an ordinance amending chapter 13.08 of the Louisville Municipal Code concerning metering of water usage in mobile home parks. This is on for first reading, so we're not going to be doing public comment tonight. Have a presentation, it appears, from staff, and then we'll have questions, maybe potentially offer amendments, but set the public hearing if we get at least 4 votes. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Corey Peterson, Deputy Director of Utilities. I'll attempt to be very brief with this one. So again, Ordinance 1927 is here before your consideration to amend Chapter 13 in the Municipal Code. Really, we're looking to add specifics for water metering and utilities responsibilities associated with mobile home parks. The purpose is to update and give the city the ability to require mobile home parks to be served by a primary meter or a single meter. This is to either improve utility operations, meet public health, regulatory compliance, or to just be consistent with modern utility practices. We also are looking to clarify the ownership, maintenance, billing, and operational responsibilities for private water systems, especially inside mobile home parks. So the reason for this is 2 main reasons: is over time, additions and extensions in the mobile home park have encroached over existing meter pits and infrastructure. In some cases, these meter pits are no longer safe for us to access or be able to get in for either meter reading, inspections, repair, and or replacement, which we're currently going through now. Current conditions require city staff to go into very tight spaces, sometimes unsanitary spaces that are beneath the mobile homes or those additions. So creating kind of an unsafe area for our staff to be in. The second reason that we're looking to do it is this will give us a very defined split point between the city's public system and the private mobile home park. So with those, that's kind of our two reasonings for it. Staff has spoken with the mobile home park. They are aware of our intent to go to a primary meter system. We will certainly move that forward if this ordinance is adopted, and hopefully do that as part of the overall meter replacement this summer, and hopefully have conclusion this fall. So with that, I'll turn it over for questions.
Thank you, Corey. Any questions? Yeah, Councilmember Fahey.
Thank you for this. I just am curious how you discovered the safety issues and discovered that you needed to fix them.
So mostly it's been driven from either our no reads or our inability to get access to those meters. So staff have to go out and investigate why that's occurring. And that's when we found the incidents that occurred.
Thank you.
Councilmember Curtin.
Great, thank you. So how will the meters be read? From a city perspective, we'll just do the one thing. But how is it going to be read within the mobile home park?
So there's a couple options, but that would default to the mobile home. So there's an option where they could do a billing average. So they could take the whole bill and divide it equally amongst all the different users and just add that to their charge. Or they could put in sub-metering and use the existing infrastructure themselves and monitor those individual connections.
Okay, and I do understand and I appreciate Louisville Council for getting a legal counsel and getting back to us that there are state laws and protections around mobile home parks and how water is billed. Okay, I'll save my next for a comment rather than a question. Thanks.
Councilmember Cooperman.
So what is the current situation at the mobile home park regarding water infrastructure and meters?
Great question. So currently we have 3 connections into the private mobile home facility from the public standpoint, and then each mobile pad has its own individual meter. So there's about 100 sites, so each one has its own individual meter connection.
Okay, and so we have 3 connections, but what about the water infrastructure that within the park?
So that is the private system, so it would be connected to an 8-inch line that goes within the roadway, and then from that 8-inch line, it goes to each individual pad.
Okay. How does this compare to, say, an apartment building or, I don't know, even an HOA or something in the city?
Fantastic question. So that's actually kind of the reason that this drove this way is it's very similar to an apartment. We would consider apartment usually has one connection from the city, and then everything inside to all the individual components is just a part of the apartment and would be part of the private system. When it comes to HOAs, they're a little bit different. Most of the time, HOAs are single-family residents and would align with the rest of our meter system.
Okay, that's helpful. Another question. So these issues that have arisen with accessing meters and so forth, I mean, I would have presumed that we had regulations on the books that would say you can't do such and such. We need to be able to access the meter. And I gathered that things have just gone awry.
That's a great way of paraphrasing it, yes.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so then a couple more questions. I know you've been talking with the owner of the mobile home park. Have we engaged at all with residents?
We have not engaged with the individual mobile home owners.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, if this were a development application, there would be some requirement that we notify people in a certain area. And I assume we don't have any kind of requirement in this case.
We do not, but we are planning to engage. That'd be part of the process of doing the meter replacement anyways. So instead of engaging for their meter replacement, we would engage with this is how your bill is going to change.
Okay. And then I just want to, so if we go ahead with this, I just want to understand a little bit more about the impacts to people living there. So the responsibility for the meters would fall to the mobile home park, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so in principle, there could be expenses associated with replacing meters or whatnot, if that's the route that things went?
Correct. So again, that would be up to mobile home park management on whether they wanted to do the averaging or if they wanted to keep the system in place.
Right. Okay. And I don't know, maybe one little question on that. So like given what's currently there, how viable is that for future use? Like in terms of the meters itself?
Yes, another great question. So those meters have been replaced with our regular process, so they are similar to the rest of the meters that we have in the city that are in need of replacement.
Okay.
So additional infrastructure improvement, if the sub-metering wanted to remain, would be required.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. We have a motion?
Yeah, I move.
Hold on for a second. Councilmember Kern has one more question.
Go ahead.
Thanks. Because I'm trying to figure out, so Corey, was this part of the meter replacement program, the expectation to replace all of these in there when the cost estimate was done and we increased everybody's rates, including the people's rates who live in the mobile home park?
Yes, so we have both of those included. When we look at either a primary meter or replacing each 100, it's about a wash. So there really isn't a cost savings or a cost increase between the two.
Oh, it costs the city the same to go to the one or replace every individual one at every individual unit?
Approximately, yes.
Wow, that is expensive to replace the really big one. Okay, I was just trying to figure out a way, if there's any way possible for us to help prevent any of these homeowners from having additional cost because of this change. And I'm sorry, I'm thinking here about what you said, that this is part of the program. Okay, thank you.
Mayor, if I could just have a clarifying question. Corey, would we be able to leave our existing meters in place and the mobile home park owner utilize those meters because they have no value to us?
That's correct. So we wouldn't be looking to remove them. But again, to Council Cooperman's point, they might be reaching the end of their useful life, so there still might be a replacement to it, but it's something that could be used in the interim for that sub-metering purpose.
All right.
I move that ordinance number 1927, Series 2026, pass on first reading and the public hearing be set for Tuesday, June 16th, 2026 at 6 p.m.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. Thank you. All right, next is ordinance number 1925, Series 2026, an ordinance amending the fire hardening code for structures in Chapter 15.70 of the Louisville Municipal Code to allow Class B composite decking. This is on for second reading and a public hearing. Because it's an ordinance, we'll have 2 rounds of public comment. And I'll open the public hearing. Are there any disclosures anybody wants to make? Okay, good. Do we have a staff presentation?
Yes, good evening again, Mayor, members of City Council. So this is second reading, so you've already seen a presentation on this, so I'll certainly keep it brief. We are basically wanting to align our citywide structure hardening code with the Wildland Urban Interface Code, where we allowed Class B decking. So this would amend the citywide structure hardening code to allow Class B decking materials in alignment with the WUI code. It is still a higher standard. So right now we have Class A. Just to remind everybody, this standard that we use has Class A, B, and C. A is the highest, best standard. It is the most expensive. When you allow Class B or Class C, it is Class B is a little cheaper. C is quite a bit more cheaper. and has more material availability, but Class B does provide some cost savings. It's supported by the fire district. The fire chief has written a letter in support of Class B. As you recall, at the first reading, there were questions about what's the cost difference in material availability. So we provided some data on that for second reading, which is up on the screen here. You can see our estimates for Class A, B, and C deck for materials compared to your cheapest alternative, most affordable alternative is pressure-treated wood. We did look at material availability. Class A, B, and C at local hardware stores. C is the only one available in store, but you can order Class A or Class B through any of the local vendors. So we did provide that information for council, but again, the fire district is not supportive of going down to Class C, and they've written a letter requesting that the city stick with Class B citywide and within the WUI. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council questions? Yep, not yet. We got to take public comment. Soon. Do any public comment? No? Okay. Any comments from council? Okay. Not seeing none. Do we have any public comment? No? All right. Bring it back to council.
I'd like to make a motion. I would move that we pass ordinance number 1925, Series 2026.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll take a roll call.
There's one discussion item.
Oh, sorry about that. I missed somebody. Councilmember Cooperman.
Thank you. Just wanted to make one comment. I'm going to support this ordinance as written. I want to say, though, I feel like my vote is sort of temporary in a sense. I feel like we still have some more work to do, which I think we're going to do when we talk about defensible space, in terms of figuring out, what sort of defensible space provisions we want in different parts of the city. And I feel like when we have that fuller discussion about defensible space, we might actually want to revisit this and possibly other decisions. It could be that there are places in the city we decide are lower risk than others, and we might consider, for instance, Class C decking in those particular areas. So for the moment, I think it's perfectly fine to align everything with the WUI and go to the Class B, but I would like to sort of just put out there that I think there might be places in the city that we determine are lower risk, and maybe we should come back to these considerations later. Thank you.
Great. Can we get a roll call?
Councilmember Cooperman.
Yes.
Councilmember Fahey.
Yes.
Councilmember Kern.
Yes.
Councilmember Hefner.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton.
Yes.
Mayor Lay.
Yes. All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. And then, let's see, we're almost at the end of our list. Next items, ordinance number 1926, Series 2026, an ordinance vacating the easement for communications tower located within Red Tail Ridge, filing number 1. This is also on for second reading. Again, we'll have 2 rounds of public comment, and Director, it's your show.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Pull up the brief presentation here. So again, this proposal is to vacate a communications tower easement that was used for emergency communications. We've received a letter from the Boulder County Sheriff's Office saying they're no longer interested in maintaining it. They're hoping to work with Advent Health when the new hospital is built to relocate the antennas. We've checked with our police department. They're supportive of removing the tower and removing the easement. So this easement was platted with the Red Tail Ridge filing number 1 plat. So this ordinance would vacate that easement since it's no longer desired and wouldn't be needed in the future. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, Council? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
And this isn't needed by the fire district either for emergency
No,
purposes?
yeah, they do communications. They,
Different channels.
through, well, this is through dispatch and other.
Okay.
So I think this helps with, actually, I don't know exactly what this communication tower is used for, but we haven't, I'm not sure if the fire district would need it for communications, but they haven't indicated that they need it. The sheriff's office hasn't indicated they would need it. Sorry, I didn't
Can
answer
they-
that very clearly.
That's okay. I think we have an officer expert in the back of the room.
That would be
I
helpful.
would love to invite to the podium. Can you come up to the mic so everyone can hear you? Thank you so much.
Up to the mic, and if you could give us your name.
Yep, I'm Corporal Hibble with the Louisville Police Department. So for that information, the Boulder County Sheriff's Office is who manages Boulder County Communications, which is the whole dispatch for both the fire and law enforcement throughout Boulder County.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other questions? No questions? Did you, oh, were you going to add something?
Nope. Just
Okay.
coming up if there are any more questions.
All right. Any public comment on this one? All right. Council, do you have any comments? Second round of public comment? Nothing. Council, do you have any comments? Nope. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve ordinance number 1926, series 2026.
Second.
Any discussion? Let's take a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hefner,
Yes.
Councilmember Cooperman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Kern,
Yes.
Councilmember Fahy,
Yes.
Mayor Lay.
Yes. Right. Next is City Attorney's report. Does the City Attorney have a report?
I do not. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Upcoming agenda items and identification of future agenda items. Is there any of that from any council member? Seeing none, do we have a motion for adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Right. Thank you all.
Thank you.